Just give it a moment for everyone to come in from the waiting room. As a reminder, please mute yourself unless you are presenting or testifying before the board. Good afternoon. This is a hearing before the Boston Cannabis Board. Today is Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. Today's agenda is being conducted pursuant to certain temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. Today's hearing is being recorded and will be posted on the city's website. Before I review procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm Chair of the Boston Cannabis Board, and today I am joined by Commissioner Lisa Holmes, Commissioner John Smith, Commissioner Alejandro St. Gian, and I'd also like to introduce the Boston Cannabis Board Project Manager, Jasmine Nguyen.
Thank you. And Commissioner Lombos is not present today. We will call each item in the order in which it appears on the agenda. I will read the item into the record, after which I will ask who is present to testify on behalf of the licensee or the applicant. You will be given a maximum of 5 minutes for administrative matters to present and a maximum of 10 minutes for new applications to present. Jasmine Nguyen will give you a warning at the 5-minute mark and the 8-minute mark. Following your presentation, the board will proceed with questions from the chairwoman and the commissioners, after which we will turn to public testimony. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. You can also submit additional testimony in writing. The record will be kept open until Tuesday, June 15th at 5 p.m. The board does not give additional weight to spoken testimony versus written testimony. Again, if you have not already signed up to testify on a specific matter, Jasmine Nguyen is going to place a link in the chat that will allow you to sign up. Again, please limit your testimony to a maximum of 2 minutes. Calling item 1, the licensee is NSAJO Holdings, Inc. The license present is 50 Clapp Street, Dorchester. This is an existing medical cannabis dispensary license. The request is to amend section 22.7 of the host community agreement from stating that the company agrees not to propose or apply for recreational sale at this site until the medical marijuana treatment center has been operational for 2 years, and requesting to change that condition to the company agrees not to commence recreational sales at this site until the medical marijuana treatment center has been operational for 1 year. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
That would be me, Alex Hardy. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you, frankly, once again, for having us. We are here to request an amendment to our current HCA, as stated, which would allow us to apply for adult use, and if approved, to allow us to commence adult use, but as stated, only 1 year after opening for medical. So we opened for medical in January 21, so that would be January 2022. As you know, we did originally appear before the board in April to make a similar request. Prior to that appearance in April, we had met with the community and with elected officials to discuss our plan. And while there was no opposition at that time, the board noted the distinction between non-opposition and direct support. So today, we return to you with that explicit support for our request from the community and from our elected officials. I will just say, when we began our application process in 2017, it was very different. No CCC, no HCAs, certainly no open and operating dispensaries in the city. So we met with and gained the trust and support of the community, in part by agreeing to operate first as a medical dispensary for 1 year before adding or converting to adult use. Now, since our appearance before you in April, we have again met with all the key stakeholders and organizations in the community, and we're returning to you now with letters clarifying their explicit support for our proposed amendment to the HCA. And again, this would allow us to submit our application for adult use sales now, as long as we do not commence adult use sales until we've been open for 1 year. So we also have letters of support from McCormick Civic Association, the Newmarket Business Association, and City Councilor Frank Baker's office, all supporting our request. And all of those have already been submitted to the board with our application. I actually think that some might be here today to speak as well. So that's about it. I'm going to keep it super short. My team is happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. And that's about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we turn to questions, I just do to make very clear for the record a distinction. This is not a request to apply or for the board to be considering adult use at this site. This is simply a request to remove the prohibition from the HCA. That is what the board is considering today. If the board did grant the request to remove this condition, this would go through the full process should they request recreational. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the licensee?
Yes, Mr. Hardy, can you remind me when the last time was you met with the McCormick Civic Association and some of the other civic associations?
Well, it was after the April meeting. So middle of May, probably 3 to 4 weeks ago.
Okay, because the letter's dated May 24th. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so it would have been about a week before that, probably.
Okay. And can you tell me, was that meeting well attended?
We met with the leadership of the organizations as opposed to the population of the organizations as a whole.
Okay.
You know, they were supportive again, and I think this speaks to, you know, what was stated earlier, which is this is not a request to apply, but a request to be allowed to apply. And the leadership of the organizations were all very supportive in the sense that it's very clear that when we do go to apply, we have to go through the whole process. We have to meet with the whole community membership of those groups, et cetera.
Okay.
Alex, Madam Chair, it's Mike Ross. I'm the attorney on this project. Just to further point on that, we specifically did ask the leadership if they wanted us to go in front of their membership, if they felt that they had authority to write a letter of support, or if they needed us to reappear, and we were prepared to do so. Yeah.
I don't have any issue with that. I'm just wondering. I don't have any other questions.
Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Commissioner St. Gian, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Are there any individuals who wish to testify regarding this matter?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Patrick Fandel from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We'd like to go on record in support of this application. As noted, the applicants have gone through an extensive community process, including a community outreach meeting earlier this spring, and then continued outreach to the McCormick Civic Association, the Newmarket Business Association. And outside of that, I know they've continued to engage area stakeholders through more informal communication. With that, we look forward to them moving forward this licensing amendment and moving forward their business in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Julie Ryan from Boston City Councilor Frank Baker's office. We would also like to go on record in support, just to echo Patrick Vandel's comments that this applicant has been very involving in the community and made sure that all their T's were crossed and I's were dotted. So we would like to go on support. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who wish to testify regarding this matter? Seeing none, the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you very much. Calling item 2, the licensee is Beacon Compassion, Inc. The license premise is 1524 VFW Parkway in West Roxbury. This is a medical cannabis dispensary license that is not yet opened. This is a request for an application for a change of beneficial interest holder, change of officers and directors, and transfer of stock. Who is present on behalf of the applicant?
Madam Executive Secretary Pete D'Agostino is present.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary, Madam Chair, and members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to appear before you again today. We are before the board, as the Secretary mentioned, for changing beneficial interests. By way of background, Beacon Compassion is currently approved as a medical cannabis dispensary in West Roxbury. The change of beneficial interest does not seek to change any of the elements previously approved by the board. This request does not include any changes to the location or the operation of the business. As you may know, Beacon is not yet open. Further, this request does not change the equity status of the company. Beacon was approved as a non-equity licensee and will remain as a non-equity licensee. And just with that being said, if I may, Madam Chair, I'd like to introduce Ben Bodemer and Chad Weiss, who are the applicants applying for the change.
Thank you, Pete, and thank you to the chairwoman as well as the entire commission. We certainly appreciate your time today and look forward to working together.
Yes, and I'd also like to thank Madam Chair and the Cannabis Commission for having us and your time today, and also look forward to spending some time and working together in the future.
And if I could, Madam Chair, just give you a quick background. Ben is currently a practicing attorney, partner, and co-chair of a cannabis group at Dixon Wright. He also has a 20-year history of researching and advocating for responsible drug policy, including award-winning research at Harvard College and as well as graduate research at Cambridge University. Ben also serves as an adjunct professor at the Ohio State University Mort's College of Law, working with the college's Drug Enforcement Policy Center. And Chad has over 20 years of experience in the healthcare sector as a founder, practitioner, advisor, and operator. He co-founded North American Dental Group from startup to operations in 11 states. He's also the founder of Wise Strategy, providing consulting and strategic services, as well as the current board chair of ProSmile Dental. So both gentlemen both have experience in both drug policy law as well as medical backgrounds. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over for any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions?
Yeah. What is the purpose of changing the beneficial the parties? Why is this being done now after the first group already applied to us? So I'm just a little confused as to now why we're switching owners.
The previous owners had elected to sell the entity, Commissioner, and these would be the new owners. This is a multi-municipal transaction. So Ben and Chad are purchasing Beacon Compassion, not only just related to Boston, but the company as a whole to include the other locations. And our regulations require us to come before you for that change in beneficial interest disclosure.
Is there a reason why the previous owners have to sell now or feel they have to sell?
I think, without speaking for them, I think it just came down to ability to impart the capital required to get these operations open, quite frankly. I think the exciting part about Ben and Chad coming on is that these projects have been fully funded. And I think the prior owners are excited to see these come to fruition and that Chad and Ben will be able to fulfill the commitments they've made, not only to the city, but to our neighborhood. So this would allow these locations to open much more quickly. And I really think it came down to a matter of capital.
Well, I remember in the beginning, the original owners were at least one, they were local. Now these people are national. So that sort of kind of changes the whole ownership from, a local business now to a national company. And I mean, other than having a better way to put it, it almost sounds like a bait and switch. Like you sent the local people out to meet us. And then once we decided on the license, now you've switched up ownership.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know there was a bait switch. I think the prior owners were just not able to raise the capital they needed. This operation includes locations in Attleboro, in Framingham, New Bedford. So it's a fairly large operation, which requires quite a bit of capital. You may remember the board really just approved whether it was a non-equity or equity applicant. The CCC did the approval of the corporation and the actual owners. They do that element of it. So the board, I don't know how much you personally weighed where they lived, but these folks are both certainly committed to the city of Boston and the Commonwealth.
Pete, I don't know if it's helpful, but by way of context, I don't think of myself as someone who's outside of Boston in that sense. I've spent 17 years as a resident of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts up until very recently. So I only recently moved back to Ohio, which is where I grew up. But I have very deep ties to the community, including as longtime outside pro bono counsel during my time in Boston to the United Way of Massachusetts Bay and Merrimack Valley. I contributed, in excess of 3,000 pro bono hours to local communities in the Boston community on various projects related to homelessness, poverty, and local community public-private partnerships. And candidly, I have a continuing interest in just personally the continued interaction with the Commonwealth, and I'm there very frequently throughout the year as well, and I'll be there for much of the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do not. Thank you.
Commissioner Zagian?
Thank you. No, I don't have questions. I think, I'm following along with the questioning of my fellow Commissioner Holmes, and I see her point, and it's just something that I want to note as well, is just how we monitor keeping local, even though Mr. Budenmeyer, I totally hear what you're saying, and you have local roots, so not even specifically to this direction, just in general, I think that is something that it is good to keep an eye on, because I do believe local ownership has been a huge element of those of people that we have approved, and we've been particularly more stringent on those that were not locally owned. So no question. I just think that it's something to keep an eye on. This is a very new industry for us, and so we'd hate to have this kind of be a regular occurrence.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce, before we move to public testimony, did you have any other questions?
I do. I respect the questions of my fellow commissioners, which raises one big question in my mind, and maybe it's for Mr. D'Agostino or the two beneficial interest holders. How much is this being sold for?
I don't know that has been publicly disclosed, Madam Chair. It's a multi-municipality transaction. Even the Cannabis Control Commission doesn't require disclosure of that. So I'm not
Something
sure.
we're interested in, because even, in my previous world, when I worked up at the BPDA, we always were concerned with people like bringing a project to the point it got permitted, and then they're selling all the permits to somebody else for a big payday. No, there's nothing wrong with it. This is, Commissioner St. Guillen just mentioned, this is a brand new industry, and there's lots of fears in the communities and stuff that a local person is doing all this hard work, and then there's a big payday, and someone's selling a license, and you're allowed to have a change of beneficial interest with our approval. But that is something I'd be interested in getting some more information on. I understand it's part of a larger deal, but I'm curious. This is the first time we've had a change, so I'm curious what these people are paying for this medical license at this location.
Madam Chairwoman, without violating obligations to the founders, which I would actually add one of the local founders, in fact, both at their election, one is agreed to, and I believe both are actually participating in ongoing consulting arrangements with the enterprise over the course of at least the year following what would be an approval of the change of control. But I would say that as to the concern about a large windfall, as to this location and as to invested capital, truly, as Pete was saying, there was a situation that the business founders had potential funding from a third party, and that third party was unable to actually perform. So they left them without what had been a committed source of capital. That was the source of our introduction, was in fact as a potential capital provider to assist them in development and operational support from a capital raising standpoint. Through those interactions, we evolved into the larger conversation about a potential change of ownership, but again, with continued involvement post-closing. And I will say, as to the West Roxbury location, as I understand, and again, I don't want to speak for them, and I don't know their entire cost basis, I believe they are effectively losing money and or breaking even as to that location. And again, I think it was truly an issue of implementing what had been the proposed plan to the benefit of the community and to get the operation up and running. So I think that is truly where their heart is, and I know that's where our heart is, which is to fulfill obligations to do what they said they would do.
It makes sense. It just in the liquor licensing world, there's a price attached to the transfer of a license. I'm always curious to see if they're going up or going down. It's like the real estate market. So I'm imagining there's a price attached to this license. I have never seen this before. So I'm using your application for a change in beneficial interest to sort of set the tone of what these are going for in the open market.
Yes, and Madam Chairwoman, there is not actually a specific price tied to the licensure. We viewed this as first of all, the part of the consideration was repayment of amounts advanced just for overall operational support. But in addition to that, I would say that as to this location, the value of the real property rights were really the highest attribution of value. There was not, in fact, a specific allocation of value to the licensing rights, because in many states, it can't even be viewed as a transferable property interest for which one could pay. So I can say that there was not specific attribution of value to the license itself.
Okay.
All right. Are there any individuals who wish to testify regarding this application, beginning with elected officials or their representatives? Are there any other individuals who wish to testify regarding this application? Seeing none, the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary. Commissioners, have a good day.
Thank you all.
Calling item 3. The applicant is Rooted In LLC. The proposed licensed premise is 195 Dudley Street in Roxbury. This is a request for a recreational cannabis dispensary license with hours of operation Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is an equity applicant. The date of initial application was May 10th, 2019. The date of filing with inspectional services was June 6, 2019. The date of the community meeting was August 6, 2019 and March 24th, 2021. This matter was deferred from the April 21st, 2021 hearing pending completion of a traffic study. The applicant will be given 10 minutes today to present regarding the traffic study. No additional spoken testimony will be taken on this matter today. However, the record will remain open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. and any individuals who wish to share additional information are encouraged to do so. If you just give me one moment, I will share the screen. Who is present on behalf of the applicant?
Brian Keith.
All right, please begin.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Secretary Delaney Hawkins, Chair Joyce, and Commissioners for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Brian Keith, co-founder and co-owner of Rooted in Roxbury, and I'm joined today by several members of our team, including my co-owners, our security consultant, Michael Ware of Ware Security, and traffic engineer, Andrew Febaziewski from Howard Stein Hudson. Next slide. Today, as a follow-up to our April 28th Cannabis Board deferral, we will be sharing information about our further community engagement and feedback, as well as our robust transportation analysis, impacts, and plans. We retained 2 transportation engineering firms to study this area to ensure a complete and unbiased report on this location. We submitted both reports to the Cannabis Board. Howard Stein Hudson is with us today as our transportation engineers of record for this project. Since you last saw us, we continued to work with our neighbors and local associations to reach as many people as possible. On April 28th, we presented to Mount Pleasant Forest and Vine Street Neighborhood Association. On May 16th, we presented to Garrison Trotter Neighborhood Association. On May 18th, we presented to Path Forward Neighborhood Association. In addition to presenting at these neighborhood association meetings, we also hosted our own additional community meeting on May 13th that was open to all.
Yeah.
We also advertised this meeting. If I may pause while the conversation is happening.
As a reminder, please mute yourself unless you are presenting to the board.
All right, resume. In addition to presenting at these neighbor association meetings, we also hosted our own additional community meeting on May 13th that was open to all. We also advertised this meeting in the Bay State Banner, and it was promoted on their social media pages. Over 40 community members were in attendance, and a recording of this meeting was shared with the board. Next slide. What we learned from further outreach is that there are those in our community who are open to a discussion and solutions to concern, and those who have unresolvable bias, and even more startling, issues with us as people. Some simply have a moral issue with the industry. Next slide. It is our great desire to work collaboratively with members of our community, but this has proven increasingly difficult as some in our community vocalize their profound desire to impede our advancement. In many cases, incidents have included racially charged language. In addition to being the targets of this prejudice, there are those creating misinformation about our businesses, cannabis related or otherwise. On this slide, you will find some of the comments made by those who purport to be leaders of our community. These are not issues we can control and or work collaboratively to resolve.
I'm
Please
sorry,
note,
I thought we were just talking about the traffic study today.
if we can pause, the request when at the April 28th deferral was to meet with the community further and to provide a traffic study. So what we're presenting today is our further meeting with the community as well as the traffic study, which will come up in about a minute.
Okay.
Please note, at the request of the board, we can provide a reference list where these quotes may be cited in print, in many cases, video recordings if further substantiation is requested. On a side note, having many conversations with both Imam Abdullah Farouk and Siddiqui Kambon, they, like many, have a moral issue with cannabis. While we can always work to be sensitive to, we cannot change their feelings. Next slide. More importantly, through our continued outreach with individuals throughout our community, we have gained constructive, actionable feedback. We committed to having a community advisory board made up of local cannabis supporters as well as cannabis critics, ensuring that we always hold ourselves to the highest standards. This advisory board will also oversee a community benefits fund and will have the autonomy to direct those funds to local worthy causes. At the advice of a neighbor, we will create a program that focuses revenues from our operations on supporting those incarcerated on marijuana charges to expunge their records and get them out of prison. We are in discussions with MRCC about managing this program for us and hope to have word back soon.
Brian, with all due respect, this is about the traffic study. You've had a full hearing before, so I'm going to ask you to jump to the traffic so that we can spend some time understanding that.
I can introduce Ian, if you could move to slide number 7.
It's a fairness issue. You've had a full hearing, and we asked you to come back with traffic, so I want to concentrate on that.
Sure. So Andrew Fabuzeski here for Howard Stein Hudson. On behalf of the client, the project located at 195 Dudley Street, which is just a few minute walk away from Nubian Square Station, which is one of the region's busiest bus hubs with 16 bus lines, including Silver Line 4 and 5, providing connections to downtown. Additionally, the site is near Blue Bike Station, connecting with the city's growing system of 3,000 bikes at over 300 stations. Both of these things combined should work to encourage non-vehicular trips to the site. Loading for the site happens easily through the side entrance utilizing reserved space off of Pavir Place, and customer parking will be done either on street near the site or at nearby municipal lots. We've performed a robust synchro traffic analysis of existing and future traffic conditions at the nearby intersections, the outcome of which is that traffic generated by this project will have a minimal impact on existing traffic signal operations. Next slide, please. So for transportation demand management, the proponent will be providing subsidized MBTA and Blue Bikes membership passes to encourage employees not to commute by a car. And they will be promoting non-vehicular travel options to both their employees on their website, to customers, and in a real-time transportation screen in the reception area to help people decide which mode to choose for their trips. Additionally, they'll be implementing pre-order systems to reduce in-store time for customers and utilizing curb management technology to keep the sidewalk along Dudley Street clear and alert customers of parking alternatives. And then finally, I want to emphasize that there are many dispensaries that are opening in Massachusetts already, and that the individual impact of additional ones have been smaller and smaller than the earlier ones that have opened up.
Thank you, Ian. In summary of all discussed today, and Rooted in Roxbury as a company, it's our intention of keeping the revenues, jobs, and wealth creation within Boston's community of color. I remind the board of our model, which sees us allowing investment with as little as $1,200, next slide please, to be a part of this billion-dollar industry, with investments in our Nubian Square location only accepting people of color. For our Boston Cannabis Board approved Newberry Street location, we are excited to share that we just accepted our first non-person of color investor who has requested to invest $1,250 in that location. We truly are an inclusive company who wants to do our part to ensure this industry is diverse and approachable to all from this city. With that, we look forward to taking your questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. As we have the traffic engineer who is present and conducted the study, we'll keep our questions focused on the traffic study and what was learned from that. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions?
Leslie, can you put the that map back up?
One moment. This one?
Yeah. So on this map, where is the the site where it says site, right?
Correct.
And the dotted lines are all the bus routes?
Yep.
And that's the train station?
The bus hub, yeah.
Oh, the bus stop, okay. So it's your testimony today that the traffic will have minimum impact?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the traffic study was conducted?
Sure. We followed BTD, Boston Transportation Department standards as far as development of existing traffic volumes and assigning traffic volumes that are generated by the trip based on ITE trip generation rates and mode share provided by the city of Boston, and routed them to the site to develop the future traffic networks and compared the impact from those trips to the existing conditions to develop the future conditions.
Okay. So the scope of this is the information we wanted. The scope of the traffic study was determined by you in conjunction with BTD, or like tell us how you go about this. None of us are engineers or traffic experts, so that's why we wanted.
There was no sort of scoping meeting with BTD specifically, but based on our experience working with BTD, we decided on nearby signalized intersections in Nubian Square as the best cases for studying.
So in the study, there's a page that says it's a 1/4 mile radius. Is that the extent of what you studied?
As far as walking distance and accounting for other modes, yes, the intersections studied specifically were the signalized intersections along Dudley Street at Warren and Harrison Avenue.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. I don't have any other questions right now.
Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do. What is, and now I forgot, it was on the next slide after the one Chairwoman Joyce just, about the site, somehow you can monitor the traffic, the parking at the curb or something. It was, let me get it right.
The curb management technology?
Yes. How does that work? Yes, curb management. Yes, how does that work?
Do you want me to speak on that? Or
yeah, I'll let Brian speak on that.
So when we first, I'm not sure if this was with our Washington Street location that we ended up pulling out of, or if it was 195 Dudley Street in our previous iteration. But when we spoke to the board, we discussed bringing technology to bear in order to mitigate any impacts that we would have on, foot traffic or, having too many people lined up outside. And this is actually that technology. We're working with a company that has extensively rolled out a camera system that's able to, work in two ways. One, it can confirm and verify where parking spots are available and then transfer that information to an app or to a website so that customers can go onto that app or website and find where there are, customers who are driving can find where there are nearby parking opportunities. And then the technology also allows us to manage our virtual queue. So it's kind of a promise that we made in a previous presentation that we're actually working to roll out, working with a company out of DC who has proven that their technology works and is sound.
And will that technology be in place when you open? Is it immediately going to be in place?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the goal. So this is a live technology, something that they're currently using in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was something like a test case for them, and they were actually able to roll it out extensively throughout the city at different retail establishments. So it's a proven technology that we would use at our locations. And from what we've seen, it works extremely well. We would anticipate that others, other businesses and maybe even the municipalities would also start utilizing this technology. And from what we've seen, the more companies or municipalities who are using it, the better the technology is, because you've just got a wider area that you can look at the app or look at the website and and see where opportunities are. And specifically with businesses, if once we're using it immediately, that is what will allow us to handle our virtual queue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, thanks, Leslie. Just to Brian, in your logistics plan, you talk about that the market in this location is intended to serve is local, and that folks aren't likely to drive. What's driving that thinking?
Well, I think that, this Roxbury is the heart of the city, and there will be individuals who, are currently passing through in vehicles who never stop in Nubian Square, who would utilize our location. So that's not to say that only individuals who walk or take, bike or something like that would come to our location. But that being said, Roxbury, where we are in Nubian Square, is a large market for cannabis. So we do anticipate us being in Nubian Square, supporting the greater surrounding neighborhood of the Mount Pleasant area and the different Garrison Trotter area, because we will be the closest location at this time to a lot of those neighborhoods. So we do anticipate a lot of people right now who walk down to Nubian Square, for commerce, would also walk to Nubian Square, to patronize our business as well. But that's not to say that there wouldn't be individuals who drive as well.
Okay. And you don't have any parking at this spot. So in your plan, you talk about how the Nubian Square neighborhood, several other streets, including Dudley Street, unregulated curb use on Dudley Street and several other streets, and that folks can park there. Are you taking into account the further development of that neighborhood, Nubian Square neighborhood?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
How that will impact?
Yes. I'll let Andrew speak to the specific curb. What I will say is that we do have parking at the location. We are offered 6 spots. There are 12 spots on site. Currently, one of the tenants is using all 12 of those spots. Once we are live in the location, we would have access to 6 spots if we wish to use them.
Okay, because it says there are no designated parking spaces for this site. So okay.
Yeah, and the reason we said that is because from the very beginning, we've always said that we don't want to use those parking spots.
Okay.
But we do have them. We do have 6 spots that are available to us. But our preference is, the old saying, if you build it, they will come. If we tell people that we have 6 parking spaces, people will come with 12 cars. So our goal is to be a transit-oriented location. So we're not publicly advertising, and we're not claiming those 6 spots. But yes, we do have them available if we do choose to use them. But I will let Andrew answer the second part of your question about the future development.
Sure.
Yeah, so I don't think any future development currently plans to change curb use or surrounding the site. And so the idea of high turnover parking resulting from pre-order system and the virtual queue should help to reduce the parking impact on the surrounding curb space.
And Commissioner Smith, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to, so you don't see any significant impact?
We do not.
Okay.
What I would, the only thing that I would add to that is that, there is recognition as you speak about additional development, that one of the lots we have as a municipal lot mile is the Blair lot. And that is scheduled to be developed. With the removal of the Blair lot, we would still see over 100 municipal lot spaces that would still be available to us. I think we counted 90 parking spaces in the Blair lot, but we also counted about a little over 175 municipal public parking spaces within a quarter mile, not curbs, but actual municipal lots within a quarter mile currently existing within Nubian Square. So once there is development on that lot, there would still be ample parking, for the community, as well as any customers wishing to drive to our location.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Gian, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, the board is not taking additional public testimony at this hearing regarding this matter. The record will be kept open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. and written testimony is encouraged. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just one moment. Move to the next item. Calling item 4, the applicant is Pure Oasis LLC. The proposed license premise is 35 Washington Street in Brighton. This is a recreational cannabis dispensary license with hours of operation Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. This is a certified equity applicant. The date of initial application was September 29th, 2020. The date of filing with Inspectional Services was October 20th, 2020. And the date of the community meeting was April 20th, 2021. Before we proceed with the presentation, I will ask Attorney Chayla White to testify regarding the equity certification.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was able to certify Pure Oasis LLC through the documentation submitted by Mr. Kobe Evans. Mr. Evans is the 60% beneficial interest holder of Pure Oasis LLC, exceeding the 51% ownership threshold set forth in the ordinance. Mr. Evans meets the following criteria set forth in the ordinance establishing equitable regulation of the cannabis industry in the city of Boston. A person who has resided in the city of Boston for the past 7 years. Mr. Evans submitted a proof of residency certificate from the Boston Elections Department, which establishes that Mr. Evans has been a resident of Boston since at least 2005 through the present. Mr. Evans has self-identified as Black, and Mr. Evans was certified by the Cannabis Control Commission on April 27th, 2018 as an economic empowerment applicant and has resided in the city of Boston since at least 2005. Are there any questions about the certification process?
Thanks, Attorney White. I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Seeing no questions, who is present on behalf of the applicant?
Kobe Evans.
Just give me one moment. As a reminder, you will be given 10 minutes to present. Jasmine Nguyen, the project manager, will remind you at the 5-minute mark and the 8-minute mark.
Hi, are you going to screen share?
Yes. All right, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Kobe Evans. I'm the co-owner of Pure Oasis, Boston's first recreational dispensary. I am here with my business partner, Kevin Hart, our attorney, Derek Smalls, and our security consultant, Dan Linsky. Just to bring you guys up to speed, that on April 20th, as indicated, we had an initial community outreach meeting. We had a follow-up community outreach meeting with the Brighton Allston Improvement Association. We also have met with local elected officials and community stakeholders. Just to give you a little bit about our company, Pure Oasis is locally owned. We are a socially conscious brand, and we are committed to addressing the needs of underserved communities through activism. Next slide, please. So this is a rendering of the proposed location at 535 Washington Street. If you go to the next slide. And so the project is situated outside of Oak Square in Brighton. A little bit in terms of why we chose Brighton. Looking at different parts of the city, Brighton voted overwhelmingly for cannabis. It was very evident that this is the case as Kevin and I walked the neighborhood talking to abutters and neighbors. The demographic of Brighton is changing, and there is a newer, younger, more progressive face of Brighton that was very supportive of our goal of opening a dispensary in Brighton, which made it pretty easy to choose this location. Unfortunately, as people may realize, Brighton does not have a lot of opportunities for a dispensary based on boundaries and schools. This is probably one of the last locations that would is viable for a dispensary. Next slide, please. This is a rendering of what the current building looks like. It was the former home of Swan Cleaners that was there for a generation or so. It's now defunct, and we are looking to revitalize the neighborhood by upgrading the building and bringing a new business to the neighborhood. One of the things that we've experienced in Grove Hall in our first dispensary is that what we're able to do by opening a dispensary is that it drives foot traffic to neighboring businesses. And so we have experienced somewhat of a revitalization in the Grove Hall neighborhood as we are seeing people visiting the barbershop next door or the nail salon. And so we're looking to repeat that in this neighborhood in terms of just bringing some renewed life to the neighborhood. Next slide, please. This is a rendering of what the building will look like after it's renovated. Again, there's not a lot of current uses for the building because it was a former dry cleaner. There are some environmental issues that will only make it usable for commercial space. So no housing can go there. So I think this will be a best fit for this particular building with this usage, especially seeing that there aren't currently any expansions around commercial space. The only businesses that are generally opening up these days while most of them are closing are cannabis businesses. Next slide, please. Again, another rendering of what the space will look like on the inside. As we build our brand out and we look to, expand throughout Boston and then become one of the premier national social equity brands, we've worked on what our establishment will look like consistently from one store to the next. And so the next couple of slides are just renderings of the look and feel of what neighbors can expect as they visit our store. Next slide, please. So about us. So I grew up in Boston, mostly all over Dorchester. My business partner is my good friend, Kevin. He grew up in Baltimore. And maybe about 4 years ago, we were lamenting about the fact that there weren't a lot of opportunities for people of color and that we used the impending ballot measure for cannabis as an example of an opportunity. And so Kevin and I kind of looked at each other in that moment and said, well, why don't we get involved? And that started our journey. It was 2016, the summer. We were down at Slade's having a beer, and that was the start of our mission to change the dynamics of Boston in the desperate economic situation of people of color. And to that end, I think that we were successful in a number of different ways because we were the
5-minute warning.
We were the first equity applicant, but we also became a role model for other people to see what it was possible to become business owners, especially in a community that is economically depressed. Next slide, please. So our company, again, we started in 2020, right before the pandemic. We were closed for 2 months. From that, we rebuilt, we made it better. And we are really proud of what we built. And even so, more so, we're proud of the fact that, we've been able to contribute to the community. And we haven't had any issues over the last year and 4 months or a few months that we've been open. Next slide. Operations, we run a retail operation, no manufacturing. one of the things that we pride ourselves on is our customer service. No matter who you are in the neighborhood, you're going to be treated the same. And we want to uplift people and empower people, especially our staff, to feel valuable, and especially when they're coming to buy cannabis, which is a product that has historically been kind of ostracized and made people to feel ashamed of their usage. Next slide, please. Security, we work with Dan Linsky of Kroll. And again, we've implemented, deployed, and kind of reworked our system to make sure that we have integral security systems that keep our staff and our customers safe. Next slide. Loitering is potentially an issue, especially around alcohol, but what we found is that people want to come to the store, purchase cannabis, and leave as quickly as possible. So we generally don't have a lot of loitering issues, although our staff is sensitive to people who might be hanging around, but they're usually just waiting for their shared car service to pick them up. Next slide. Diversion, again, because you have to be 21 to enter, everyone gets carded, everyone's ID is checked, and then we can track to make sure that no sales are above the limit or people aren't diverting our product to anyone underage. That's another issue that we're sensitive to, and we've had no issues over the last year. Next slide. Again, most of our jobs are neighborhood jobs. We have one person in particular, he walks a mile every day to go to work and go home. We're proud of being a neighborhood employer. Next slide. Community is important, and we look to be a good community partner in Brighton as well. I know that there's been issues around parking. And again, we have an order ahead system that mitigates parking. Many of our customers in Grove Hall use ride shares, biking or walking. What you'll see going forward is that people are using dispensaries like a neighborhood liquor store where you're not going around across town to purchase cannabis. You're staying in your neighborhood, you're walking in or walking to the store, and you're leaving. And so what we've seen is that right now, because of other dispensaries that are open, most of our traffic trickles in throughout the day. We don't see a rush. We see, one or two people every few minutes. And as we get more and more stores, then we won't see as much traffic as they did when there was only 2 stores in the state. And so we feel comfortable going into a neighborhood and not necessarily causing any additional issues regarding parking or traffic. And we heard from the neighborhood and we found additional parking for our staff. So we've been very responsive and sensitive to neighborhood concerns. Next slide. Social justice, again, giving back, hiring people with quarries. Kevin and I both have lived experience growing up in the inner city. And we want to reshape and reimagine what it is to be a person of color who can be a successful business owner in the community. Next slide. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do. I just want to point out for the record that this is an equity applicant, which means in plain terms, they kind of get an expedited path to us for these hearings. And the only reason why I'm mentioning that is that there is so much opposition in the community. I sense from those opposition letters that they feel like this has been sort of like rushed through. I'm not saying it has been. You followed all the steps. I know there was a community meeting April 20th. My concerns, again, from a licensing perspective, to kind of flip the statement you made about how this neighborhood has changed a lot. It's changed a lot because it's located near so many colleges. For better or for worse, Brighton, there's not a lot. It's a very transitional community.
Yeah.
People go to college there and they generally move out. So I want some more information from you about how you're going to be IDing these people. It's not enough to be scanning something, an ID through a scanner. There has to be a commitment on the part of the licensee, should you be given a license, to go above and beyond just a digital scanner. Those things become outdated very quickly, and the technology of these fake IDs changes all the time. And I'm very, very concerned that in this neighborhood, your scanning or your IDing wouldn't be enough. So I'd like you to give me some more information about that. I do have some more questions about the location.
Sure. So what we do is we, again, as you know, we employ a technology and it's updated on an app, and we generally scan for, we run the ID through a scanner connected to a database that validates the ID. It's a lot easier now. In the past, we've had to ask people to take down their masks. But now, you know, as people are getting vaccinated, we don't have that issue as much. And we are generally hypersensitive to failing in compliance as it relates to regulations because we don't want to lose our license. And so we heavily scrutinize IDs and we stay up to date with the federal government as it relates to ways to check for fake IDs. And
what about out-of-state IDs? Like you're in a college neighborhood, basically, or in Oak Square, college, you know, off-campus housing, a lot of that there. What are you doing about out-of-state IDs?
So again, our database is a national database. We use a point of sale system that's national. So it uses a national database to check for IDs. And again, it scans the barcode and it will determine whether or not that ID is an active, legitimate ID. And then we cross-check with the visual scan of the person.
What does it check for? The name and address, that it's valid?
Dan, can you lend anything to this or?
Yeah, sure, if I could, Kobe. So it checks to see that it meets the conditions of what the state requires from, say, New Hampshire has different sets of circumstances than Massachusetts. So the system verifies that it you know, has holograms, has the barcode to be there. The other thing we do is train staff to be, you know, it's one thing to scan an ID and the ID can be a good ID. That doesn't mean it belongs to the person who's giving it to you. And you can get ID fatigue where people are just scanning the IDs and not going through it. So we train staff to make sure that they are assessing. If you've seen the same person over and over again, you know them, you know, there's probably not as need to be as hard on Dan Linsky's ID if I'm a weekly customer. But when we're seeing new faces and younger faces, especially in Brighton, we want to make sure our security staff is asking questions, right? So looking at the ID and then asking, you know, how's your day, David? And if David says he's having a good day, well, I'm wondering why he answered that question when his name is Bill. And the things we used to do as police officers where we ask for, you know, what's your horoscope sign and some additional questioning to make sure that the ID goes with the person. So just scanning IDs is not enough. You have to have people on their toes. And our process is to hopefully also send some secret shoppers in with fake IDs where we're testing our staff to see if we can get around our security program and if we need to train additionally or do other components.
Just as an anecdote, I recently did an inspection of one of our own cannabis establishments that had a scanner for IDs, and it scanned all of our fake IDs as correct. So I would be very concerned about that, especially in a neighborhood like this. And I would ask the applicant to commit to any out-of-state IDs to ask for a picture backup.
Absolutely, we can absolutely.
I don't think it's enough to rely on your computer download of your scanner. These things, the technology changes daily. It's just not enough.
Yeah, and again, we can employ some external hardware at this location just to make sure that we have hardware and software and redundancies that are sensitive to fake ID.
Okay, and just back to the location in the neighborhood, and this is, Oak Square is a traffic nightmare. I'm very familiar with it. Mm-hmm. This location is going to, you can't even like pull over to go get a cup of coffee. It's so difficult in Oak Square. And Brighton isn't known to be a public transportation mecca. It's very difficult to get into the city of Boston on public transportation from Brighton. And I know there's a bus route. I'm not familiar with which one it is, but you've written about that and it was in your presentation.
Yeah.
This to me does not, it doesn't have great access to public transportation or on-site parking. So how do you talk me through getting through my score sheet about those two things?
The 57 bus goes from Kenmore Square to Newton Corner. And so that's, I think it's a 4-mile long route. We have off-street parking that we've secured for staff.
Where's that?
So it's in back of our store. There's a private parcel of land that's kind of landlocked a long driveway. And so there's a plumbing supply shop that really doesn't show up on a map, but it's in between Fairbanks and the next street over. And we've secured about 7 spots for staff. We also are looking at hiring from the community that will further reduce the need for staff to have cars. And coupled with the fact that what we've experienced in Grove Hall is that when you have the Friend Street location open up, and as you have other dispensaries open up, people aren't coming from South Boston to Grove Hall anymore. What you're seeing now is people who live in the immediate area as our baseline customers. We are not opening up Brighton to be the mecca of Alston and Brighton. Ultimately, there will be 2 more locations in Alston. There will be more locations in Brighton. There's Mary Ann's in Coolidge Corner. There's another potential
Circle.
Circle. There's another potential dispensary opening up on Market Street, I believe. So we will have enough competition that people aren't coming from Alston, because Alston will already have 2. Newton will have its others, and we're not built to have we're not building it to attract people from across the city. It will be a neighborhood store like the neighborhood liquor store that's down the road. And currently what we see in Grove Hall is because of the other dispensaries, we just get a trickle of traffic. There are no more lines that we have in Grove Hall. People trickle in, they spend probably 4 minutes inside, they get in their Uber and they're gone.
And usually Commissioner Lombos asks these questions. How many employees do you have? What do you plan on having?
For this one, 25. And that's again through 2 shifts, 7 days a week.
And how many of them will be full-time?
We try and hire more full-time employees. It's just easier for staffing. And so again, that vast majority of them will be full-time.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have right now, Leslie.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do not at this time. The chairwoman actually echoed some of my concerns, so we got them out then.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Hi, Leslie. Yes, thanks. Colby, just so given your experience in Roxbury, just thinking about your hiring and all that, you didn't provide like a lot of specifics in terms of percentages.
Yeah.
Or, can you break that down a little bit?
Sure. So we're 60% local in terms of the immediate Boston location. We're 80% minority. Our management team is 100% people of color. We have 40% women. We have only 10% people with Corys. Unfortunately, as it relates to Corys, anyone that applies that has a Cory, if they are qualified, we put their application through. Unfortunately, not everyone who has a Cory can get licensed through the state. So there's a variable between the people that we hire and the people who actually get licensed. But if it was up to us, everyone who has a Cory that is qualified would be hired. Again, Kevin and I have a lot of lived experience growing up in the inner city, and we believe in giving everyone second chances. And so we like underdog stories, and probably 95% of all of our staff are recreational cannabis users, which disqualifies them from working in most places like Target. But they get paid well to work at Pure Oasis. We have health benefits, and so our staff are near and dear to our heart, and we treat them like family. And we don't judge people based on their background or where they came from or what kind of experience they've had. And we like people who live in the neighborhood, because it makes it easier.
Thanks, Kobe. But so is your staff right now in Roxbury neighborhood based?
The vast majority of our staff is neighborhood based. We have one person I believe lives in Brockton, and I believe someone else who lives in Brighton, but the vast majority is neighborhood based.
Okay. So you also didn't outline any sort of supplier diversity.
So there's an issue in the landscape of the industry as it stands, because the vast majority of suppliers are vertically integrated, coming from medical, and we are on our pathway to becoming the first vertically integrated social equity company, if in Massachusetts, if not in the whole country. We have a project down in Dayton. We're about to sign a host community agreement, as well as we're going to purchase our own facility. And as well as in Brighton, we are buying our own building. And so we're going to change the landscape of what it means to be a social equity applicant in the state. And so we are working with we're working with the very few diversity suppliers available, but we won't really get those numbers going until we start to do delivery, because the vast majority, 100% of all the delivery operators will be economic empowerment or social equity applicants.
Okay. And lastly, given what we've read, at least in terms of the community feedback, can you talk a little bit about, are you thinking of like a community benefits plan at all?
One of the experience that we had in Grove Hall is that when people are adamant, there's really no acquiescing, there's no middle ground. And we reached out to all the stakeholders in Grove Hall before we opened, and we tried, anything and everything possible to try and bridge that gap to find some middle ground. And unfortunately, it broke our heart, because we wanted to, give back and create some community benefits, but people were very steadfast in their opposition. And it wasn't necessarily about reasonableness or things that they wanted that we weren't doing, because anything and everything was on the table. Our attorney, Derek Small, worked tirelessly to try and figure out what the path forward was. In some cases, as everyone can speak to, there is no path forward to try and bridge the divide between what people are opposing and what there might be for a middle ground. It becomes the fear of the unknown that we're going to create this glut of traffic, as people saw in Northampton, when that's not the case. And so, yes, community benefits are always available, but that's usually not the solution in most cases.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Gian, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, just a couple. I know that, the application was just submitted in September. And the community meeting was just last April, and the letters of support there was only one letter of support, and the other was a petition. And it doesn't have the zip codes. Do you happen to know like the percentage of those that sign that are in the immediate area?
It was a very small percentage that were actually in the immediate area.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. And then in several of the communications from the opposition, there was a question about the community meetings having different dates on them, and that there was some confusion. Can you get into that a little bit, that there was 3 different dates that were
Yes,
given?
I think that the process was pretty seamless with the BAIA meeting, and then we had the April 20th. Previous to the April 20th, our mailing company sent out the wrong flyer, or there was some issue with the mailing that the information, I don't recall, but I know we had to shift the date on that first mailing. But again,
let me just jump in there, Commissioner St. Gian. The initial mailing that went out pursuant to the CCC's statutory requirements for the notice of their community meeting had an error, so it was rescheduled for a subsequent date to ensure compliance.
Oh, okay. That wasn't on the part of the applicant then?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. And then lastly, you mentioned looking at various locations in Boston, throughout the state, perhaps nationally, which is great. Was there a reason behind moving forward with this one right away, or are there others that you are considering as well?
So we're parallel processing on a couple of different locations. We've learned a lot in opening Grove Hall, and people call us almost every day looking for some consultation in terms of what we've done right and what our experience has been. And so we wanted to just use that momentum to capitalize on it, and to This is a growing market and we wanted to be able to, demonstrate our success and to move on to neighboring states and to really grow this opportunity that we've been provided here in Boston. In Brighton Center, great location, but there's a current school in Brighton Center. There just aren't a lot of locations in Brighton between buffer zones and schools. And, I didn't, at the time, we didn't realize that there was this community of people who, had been there for generations. And, we did the outreach and it wasn't until later down the track that we started getting feedback. We responded, we found parking, and I think that people will see that traffic isn't the nightmare that it wasn't in Northampton and that it is a community endeavor. But we want to prove ourselves, we want the opportunity to prove that, we can be good community partners, and we have experience in addressing issues before they become concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now turn to testimony. We will begin with elected officials or their representatives, after which we will turn to individuals who have signed up online. If you have not signed up, please do so via the link that Jasmine Nguyen, our project manager, has placed in the chat. After we go through everyone who has signed up, we will open it up to any remaining individuals if they're calling in by phone and when we're unable to sign up. As a reminder, please limit your testimony to 2 minutes. You can also submit additional testimony in writing. Please state your name and address prior to testifying. Are there any elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify regarding this matter?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Patrick Vandell, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, on behalf of my colleague, Connor Newman, the Alston-Brighton liaison for the Mayor's Office. There was a statutorily required community outreach meeting held on April 12th via WebEx events, which was attended by residents, community stakeholders, and representatives of local elected officials. At this meeting and in subsequent communications, residents and stakeholders have expressed continued concerns with the lack of on-site parking, the potential for more congestion, and other adverse traffic effects on Washington Street, and the application's proximity to the Oak Square YMCA and BPS's Mary Lyons School. Further, the applicant presented their application proposal to the Brighton Allston Improvement Association this past month and did not secure their support. The Mayor's Office would like to go on record in opposition to this application and ask that the applicant continue to engage with residents and stakeholders in the neighborhood to address their continued concerns if they come back with this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Jen Migliori.
Hi, Leslie. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much, Madam Chair and Executive Secretary and members of the Cannabis Board. My name is Jen Migliori. I work for State Representative Mike Moran. And on behalf of both State Representative Mike Moran and State Rep Kevin Honan, they would like to go on the record to reflect that they are in opposition to this proposal, echoing the concerns of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Liaison. Basically, a lot of the abutting neighbors are in opposition. The local civic organization is in opposition, and it's really due to the precarious traffic corner and due to the fact that it provides zero parking for its customers and, likely burden the nearby residential streets of Langley Road, Oak Square Avenue, and Fairbanks Avenue. So thank you guys so much and hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Are there any other elected officials?
Good afternoon, Secretary Delaney Hawkins.
I'm sorry, please state your name for the record.
Hi, good afternoon. Pam Mullaney, on behalf of Councilor Liz Braden for Alston-Brighton. The councilor has submitted a letter of non-opposition for this application. The councilor has heard constituent support for the project, as well as opposition related to concerns about customer parking and traffic safety, particularly at the intersection of the corner of Washington Street and Fairbanks Street. She asked the Cannabis Board members to look carefully at the proponent's parking and transportation plan as the BCB considers the merits of the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify? We will now turn to individuals who have signed up to testify. Just give me 1 minute. Please ensure that when I call your name, you unmute yourself and you state your full name, if not previously given, your address, and limit your testimony to 2 minutes. Calling Sheila Gleason. Is Sheila present?
Hi, yes, I'm present, Sheila Gleason. And we own the property at 551 Washington Street, which is within the 300 yards of the proposed development. And I'm here to speak in opposition, primarily because of traffic and parking. They have no parking whatsoever, parking already on the street. We're the next driveway up to them. And we're already used as public parking by the current businesses because people cannot get parking. There's double parking going on all the time, which is really dangerous because it's right around the corner. So the 57 bus came barreling around yesterday, and there were 2 or 3 cars double parked in front of the Swan and further up, and there was almost an accident. But there are always accidents there. We had a vehicle totaled because of double parking there. It's really dangerous. They're letting people off the bus, and there's a crosswalk just on the other side of Oak Square Avenue, and in front of Papa John's Pizza. They're always double parked there. So it's just a precarious intersection there. And then you have people coming from Langley Road as well. So it's a huge issue. There is no parking there available at the moment. So I'm not sure what arrangement they've made, but with the parking at the rear, but that's a private driveway that's only accessible through a kind of a dirt road. And it's not going to be for customers. So where are the customers going to park? There is no parking available. One space, maybe now and again, you'll see it. Other than that, it's all double parking already. So for this reason, I'm really saying that this is just not a good location for this. And I'd be happy to support it in a more suitable location where there was parking.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say I'm one of the old progressives in the population, so.
Right. Thank you very much. We appreciate the testimony. That is just a little over 2 minutes, but you can always submit additional testimony. Calling Deborah Valianti. Is Deborah present?
Yes.
Hi, please state your address for the record.
My address is 8 Oak Square Avenue in Brighton. And I am 1 street over, and I know exactly what lot was being mentioned because that is right across the street from me. And as Sheila said, it has a little dirt access road to it. And the apartment building right across the street from me also uses that small lot. So it would not be adequate at all. And I have said at the initial meeting that I took great exception to us being called a blighted neighborhood, and that this would revitalize our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is not in need of revitalization in that way. Unfortunately, we've all been suffering through the pandemic, and we need things that will service us. I've lived here for 35 years. Like Sheila, I am an old progressive. There are many, many people that have lived in this neighborhood for a long time. And unfortunately, this location is within walking distance. 2 streets over is Beechcroft, where there is the Mary Lyons Lower and Upper School, which is a high school. I do not think that this is an appropriate location at all. I've had a lot of dealings with both college and graduate students because I've opened my home to them, and I know that they are going to be using this location fairly heavily. The 57 bus is not adequate, and that is about all that we have as far as public transportation here. So I'm going on the record as being opposed to this location for this particular use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see that Leanne Brandon, you have your hand raised. Please state your address for the record.
Yeah, Leanne Brandon, 19 Langley Road in Brighton. As many other people have said, the parking and traffic is terrible. I'd just like to talk about the actual details of what Langley Road is like. Langley Road is a very narrow street. It's a hill, and even though it's a two-way street, cars can come up either side. And what happens is they meet at the top if people aren't from the neighborhood, and usually one of us will back down. On the other hand, we're going to have traffic jams with people facing each other, not knowing how to get off the street, not knowing where to back up. And I'm afraid that people looking for parking are going to try to be circling around Langley Road. That's the obvious. We're sort of like a circle almost. And that's what people will be doing, is circling Langley Road and Washington Street to try to find parking. Even though there may be a couple of extra parking spaces that the Oasis people can find, that could probably only be on a lease basis, and that could evaporate at any point. So that's a problem. One more detail about parking. If I come home, I'm on Langley, not too far, right at the top of, well, on one side of Langley. If I come home after 4 o'clock, I have to park 3 or 4 blocks away from my house in order to come home. And I can't imagine additional parking problems in that case. And a lot of us are not transients. A lot of us have been here for a very long time. The Langley Road, Oak Square neighborhood is an established neighborhood. And many of us have lived here for a very long time and are very concerned about our ability to navigate in the neighborhood. One other point, the hours, of course, are excessive, I think, but I think that the owner's idea of parking, of pedestrian traffic is a problem. There is not a lot of pedestrian traffic. People come here with.
Thank you very much. That's just over 2 minutes. Please submit any additional testimony in writing. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify? All right. As a reminder, the record will be kept open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. So please feel free to submit any additional testimony and that will be considered. We're going to take a 3-minute recess and return for the next agenda item. All right, we will get started again in just 1 minute. All right, we are now going to move on to item 5. The applicant is Racist on the Hill LLC. The proposed license premise is 123 Terrace Street, Mission Hill. This is a request for a recreational cannabis dispensary license with proposed hours of operation Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is a non-equity applicant. The date of initial application was September 6, 2019. The date of filing with Inspectional Services was November 1st, 2019, and the date of the initial community meeting was March 16th, 2020. Who is present on behalf of the applicant?
Myself, Jeffrey Sanchez.
Just give me one moment and we'll begin with the presentation. As a reminder, you have 10 minutes. Jasmine Nguyen will give you a reminder at the 5-minute mark and the 8-minute mark.
We'll see how that goes.
All right, please go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Madam Executive Secretary, and everyone who's present here today. Thank you for joining us and staying on the call with us. My name is Jeffrey Sanchez, and I'm proud to introduce you to Raíces on the Hill. Mission Hill, this community is where I saw so many incredible things in this community. And it's also where the city in itself and myself, we were able to thrive. My family was able to thrive. It's where I first went to school. It's where my mother still lives, on the very street of this proposed dispensary. At the same time, Mission Hill is also a place that saw a lot of challenges. The desegregation of the schools, the Stewart murder that happened in Mission Hill, there was tremendous racial strife, and then the war on drugs that hit Mission Hill very hard, that was documented in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s throughout my entire childhood and while I was growing up. It was a place where the police, they harassed at the time, between the Metropolitan Police and others. They gave us a hard time just simply because we looked different. We didn't know why we were getting challenged on the streets. But I felt, regardless of all this as well as so many other things that I was able to do, is also a chance to give back. In fact, Mission Hill is also the place where I was an altar boy in Mission Church, which is where I made my best friends, began my career, launched my campaigns. And this project also is very distinguished from everything that I've been committed to for my entire life. And it's about giving back, but giving back in a very literal sense. So much so that we've committed to giving 10% of our profits back to this community. Next page, please. I'm not alone in this effort. Alex Oliver is more committed to this community and its young people than anyone I know. And part of her reason for getting involved in this project is to help support this community even more. Rafael Ruiz broke many barriers in the Boston Police Department, and we're proud to have him on this team as our security advisor. Unfortunately, he was able to make it with us today because he works doing some work for the Department of Justice in Puerto Rico, so he's not able to join us, but he is working with us on our security plan. Not seen on the screen, but also on the call is Mike Ross, our attorney, and he's also an investor. Mike represented this community for 14 years, and he lived this community for about a decade, and together we're Raíces on the Hill. Next page, please. So Alex and I comprise 50, although this is not an equity application, somehow we're not equity applicants. Alex and I comprise 51% of the ownership of this company, and the remaining investors help comprise a team that is over 70% Boston residents. Our architects, security advisor, transporter of cash, and produce are also MBE businesses. And in addition, we're going to commit to hiring an MBE company to hire our security team. Next page, please. Our employment plan establishes strong yet achievable hiring goals across the board. And in addition to working with various community-based organizations, government agencies, newspapers, social media to outreach to various communities, I'm personally looking forward to reaching out to so many of this community, particularly the people of Mission, Maine and Bromley Heath, and the Mildred Haley properties, where I know there's so many qualified and talented individuals to work with us at the facility. Next page, please. This facility sits in an existing one-story warehouse on 123 Terrace Street in Mission Hill. It's currently home to Diablo Glass, a glass art studio where artists and artisans make beautiful works of art and teach each other the craft of glass blowing. And one of our commitments to the Mission Hill community was to keep Diablo on site at below market rents. One neighbor told us necessarily she's not a supporter of cannabis, but since we were agreeing to support Diablo, she signed on with us as well because she's so committed to Diablo. We also see a synergy with our respective businesses, and with this respective business and other businesses that are in the community to see if we can sell not only Diablo's products, but other products other products from other businesses at our facility as well. Diablo recently bought on an instructor of color, which is very important to our team, and we see this as an opportunity to create a center of art and activity in this Mission Hill community. The cannabis establishment itself will have a separate and secure entrance to the facility. Customers will enter directly off the sidewalk or from our parking area, where we have 10 on-site parking spots. And customers will be able to walk into the building past a giant window into Diablo where they can watch the glass blowing. The long hallway is going to create its own queuing area, and so that we can make sure that there's not going to be any visible lines from outside of the facility. And once they make their purchase by either ordering ahead or using their smartphone or at one of the 8 point of sale stations, they're going to leave through a separate door to exit the building.
5-minute warning.
Security, the delivery, cash pickup will occur through a separate and secure area in the northwest corner of the building, and the exterior of the building is going to be improved for parking, exterior lighting, landscaping, and we're very proud of this investment. Next slide. These are the elevations. I want to point out the large windows and the extreme topography of the section of the property. Next slide. This section will give you a better idea of how this all comes together. And then in the next slide, this rendering shows how we'll look when we're open, and we're very looking forward to keeping Diablo. And one last thing about Terrace Street, there's literally hundreds of units that are either planned or being planned to build on that street. It's a hot new housing development area, and we think that renovating this existing one-story building in the area and providing a retail destination for residents is good for and consistent with good planning. Next slide, please. Our security plan started with an early meeting with Captain Facey in Area B2, and we committed to police details as necessary in a robust security plan prepared by Rafael Ruiz. And together with our consultants, we'll create a positive addition to the community of Mission Hill that we intend to participate in planning exercises, as well as investments through our commitment that we're going to invest in the planning for further development. Next slide. We've also engaged Hayes Engineering to advise us as to traffic impact, and they conclude that only a minor increase in peak hour traffic. And I'd also like to point that Terrace Street abuts the Orange Line, the corridor, and we also anticipate a great deal of pedestrian and bicycle traffic to the facility as well. Next. In terms of community support, we're proud that we've received from our community letters of support from elected officials, our butters, neighborhood organizations, area residents, and in total, we have over 250 expressions of support from our community, either in letters or signatures or otherwise. We appreciate the opportunity to come to the community in May, and you recall we were on the agenda, but members of the community requested a delay so that they could provide a community update and a check-in. And as a result, we entered into a good neighbor agreement with Mission Hill Neighborhood Housing Services. Having the formal support of this longstanding neighborhood institution is a win for Raíces and the community itself. I also note that this is a community that has voted overwhelmingly to support cannabis. Next slide. When the concept for Raíces first began, Alex, myself, and Mike agreed that 10% of all profits would come back to this community. We'll have a yearly public meeting where we review community priorities, and we're going to allocate funding to various nominated causes. And we're also truly excited to be able to give back in a meaningful way, as well as engage through an advisory committee as a part of this commitments that we're making. Next. This slide shows extensive community outreach conducted over the last 19 months where our support is coming from. And next slide. We believe that we're doing well and doing all mandatory requirements in business. We require that doing well and doing good are mandatory in business and in life. And we're proud to be able to introduce Raíces to the Hill today, Raíces on the Hill to you today. And we really look forward to asking for you to answer any of your questions that you may have. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present before you today.
Thank you very much. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do. Thank you. You did a very good job getting through your presentation.
I'm sorry.
You did a good job. Chairman Sanchez, do you still live in the neighborhood?
I live in Jamaica Plain. I live in the back of the Faulkner Hospital, but my mother's on the corner there, so I'm there every day.
Okay.
And she could corroborate that because she's on the call as well.
I just want to confirm, I think I saw in the materials, there's 10 on-street parking, 10 off-street parking spots.
Yeah, we're so lucky that we were able to have, there's a building there now. So the thought is to take down that building so that we can expand the parking spots and then create, as we heard in previous testimony in today's hearing, we need a system on how we're going to get people in and out and how we're going to be responsible, because we know that this community also has a large student population, and we want to make sure that we're living up to the letter of the law and making sure that people that we're making sure that people who are lawful in buying product from us.
Okay, and I noticed, this is just a comment, I noticed that you're going to keep the Diablo glass tenant on site.
Yeah, we're super excited about that because we're going to be the only dispensary probably in the country that has a glass blower as a part of their business. If you see there's 3 buildings there, we're going to keep Diablo. We're going to make them whole, fix up the spot a bit. We're going to have our dispensary, and then we're going to have some swing space on the side as well. And then the parking that we have that's going to help us again on the traffic front, as well as again this flow that has to exist. Because if you see, it's about 9,000 square feet of space. We're going to be able to use that space to queue people inside as opposed to outside.
Okay, and what is the plan for the number of full-time employees? I'm just curious.
I think we're shooting at about, Mike, what is it, about 15, I think?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we're looking at between 12 and 15 full employees at the site.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, just, and I know you're going to, you haven't picked your security team completely right, but you do have Mr. Ruiz as your consultant. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Commissioner. And we're really excited about this as well, because not only having Rafael Ruiz, I mean, on this call, we have a couple of retired police officers that I'm hoping that we could talk to as a part of what we're looking forward into the future. People that have been in this community, live in this community, serve this community. The term raíces means roots. So I want to make sure that this building it encapsulates the roots of Mission Hill and the roots of the people that are from Mission Hill. It's Latino, it's African American, it's Irish, we want to make sure that we encapsulate this, but also being cognizant that equity is a big deal. And we're committed to that in everything that we do.
And just one more thing, the chairwoman brought it up with the previous applicant, and you're going to face the same types of difficulties. Mission Hill is a college community.
Oh, yeah.
So you're really going to have to step up your ID processes and make sure that you're following all the guidelines and double IDs for somebody who's out of state. And so, just want to make you aware, because unfortunately, there are always lots of incidents in Mission Hill with the college students and drinking and late night parties. So that's probably going to be one of your biggest concerns, to ensure that, you're IDing these people correctly and the product is not getting into the wrong hands.
Absolutely, Madam Commissioner. We know it, we see it. We have relationships with folks in the restaurant community there in Mission Hill, and we've seen it. I've seen it my entire life in that community. So we're very, very sensitive to it, and we're very sensitive to making sure that we just don't rely on technology that becomes outdated in a minute. There's got to be a human piece to this thing to make sure that we're doing the right thing constantly. So thank you.
And I'm happy you're keeping the artist space there. We need more spaces like that. So thank you for that.
They're so excited, and we're excited to do this.
That's all, Leslie. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. Mr. Ross, you said 12 to 15 full-time positions, right? The presentation said 10. Is it 10 or 12?
Yeah, fair point. I was thinking that the second I said it. I would say it's probably going to be somewhere between 10 and 15, Commissioner. Jeff mentioned something about a security person that lives in the neighborhood. So we also committed to hiring a MBE security firm. So if the MBE can't pick up the individual that we have in mind, who's a retired police officer, and we'd go so far as to hire that person as an employee to do security, to supplement the MBE security team that comes on. So for that reason alone, there's an additional person that we may be adding to the employee count. So that's why that might move it up a little bit. And then we just want the flexibility. I mean, the plan is to train local Mission Hill people to eventually take over. But the top job is going to have to go to someone who's has experience in cannabis in Massachusetts. So we might have a little higher management in the beginning as well. So for that number, for that reason, there's a variance in the numbers of the employees.
Okay. Does the 10% that you're giving back to the community, does that include like an offset you're giving to Diablo Glass?
Yeah, so everything that's relative to community benefits. So we're going to make direct investments in the transportation and the traffic issues that exist on the street right now. We in that good neighbor agreement, we actually say we're going to give them 25,000 first year, 50,000 second year, and 75 the third. Was it, Mike?
That's for Terrace Street.
That's for
the street.
Right, exactly. But it's all built into the 10%. It's all built into the 10%.
Inclusive of the subsidy, Commissioner, of Diablo as well, correct?
Okay. What's the process and criteria in terms of how you're working with the community?
Well, in the good neighbor agreement, we actually form a community advisory committee of sorts where we opened up the books and say, this is what we've done. This is where we're at in terms of what our net profit is going to be that we can work with. And we'll listen to what the community's priorities are. And we'll take thoughts from the community on what they would like to do. If a nonprofit's interested in seeking support, we don't want to make it too complicated for them because, when I think about in Mission, Maine, or in in the Mildred Haley apartments, there's things that go on there all the time that they might need, $1,000 here, $5,000 there for either food or for, if they have students that they want to support with book bags, or, there's a whole host of things, but we want to make sure that we engage the community in this. And that's why in the Good Neighbor Agreement, we make sure that we establish a committee of folks to make sure that we take their input as well, that we're not just doing this by ourselves. And this was a part of the conversation that we had with the community directly on all fronts. And we wanted to make sure that, again, that in everything that we do, that it reflects the diversity of this community. And so it's a wide range of racially ethnic folks that are a part of this process.
So could Alex and Sociedad Latina apply for funding?
I don't think that they could, because there may be a conflict there, but the other organizations will be able to. And the only other nonprofits that I sit on the board on, they're outside. I sit on the Community Builders Board of Directors. I sit on the Schwartz Center for Compassionate Care. I don't see them, they're not a Mission Hill, and they're not in Mildred Haley apartments.
Right. I just mentioned that because
absolutely
Sociedad Latina is right up the street from you.
They are, and they do incredible work, and on the day-to-day.
No doubt. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Gian, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Good afternoon. Most of my questions were answered. I was curious about why you weren't designated as an equity applicant. Did you not apply, or was that?
Unfortunately, I don't fit into the criteria. I think I fit into all of them, except that I was never arrested. I'm coming out to you today, Mom. I smoked grass when I was 16. I never got arrested. But did I feel the impact? Absolutely. And unfortunately, if you look at the way the state has broken up the city into the city in terms of the equity, Mission Hill is never a part. Mission Hill is never a part of anything when it comes to equity because of the property values, the income values, and the area median. And poverty is concentrated in Mission Hill. And unfortunately, as a result of that, even though Mission Hill was a big part of the attack on the war on drugs, where countless Black men and countless Hispanic men and Black and Hispanic men and women were gone after, and it was a rough time. In 1993, when the city came to redevelop Mission Maine, there were helicopters, hovering around the neighborhood looking for folks. It was quite.
Remember.
Remember that? Yeah, you were around there too.
Remember?
Right?
Yeah, I lived down the street. No, I was just curious. So you applied and were rejected.
No, I never applied because I never, again, just looking at the criteria, I never fit into the criteria.
If I could just jump in there, there was a conversation that we have seen instances like this where someone who you think would be equity under the city's ordinance simply doesn't qualify. One of the things we're continuing conversations on is that the areas of disproportionate impact as defined by the CCC often do not include areas that you would expect it to. I do believe Mr. Sanchez and his colleague met 2 of the criteria, but they would have to meet three or more under the ordinance. So even though it is in with the spirit of the ordinance, the board has no flexibility in applying it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner.
We will now turn to testimony, beginning with elected officials or their representatives. We will then turn to the general public. Are there any elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify? And I see that Representative Tyler is present.
A good afternoon, Madam Chair and the entire committee. Thank you so much for taking me out of turn and having me today. I really appreciate you continuing to have these opportunities for folks to chime in on thoughts as to how we're moving forward with the cannabis business in general here in the city of Boston. So thank you for your efforts and your continued commitment. I just wanted to chime in really quickly and express my support for Raíces on the Hill. I've been rather impressed with Jeff Sanchez and his team's ability to be able to create a thriving community in the Mission Hill community, which I represent a portion of. And I would like to see that continue. It's really, really hard to do so with all the things that are happening with gentrification, all the changes, ever-going changes here in the city of Boston. And I definitely have no doubt in my mind that this team has the ability to be able to add on to that, starting with the community advisory team. That's pretty impressive. Haven't really seen it done with other teams, but I'm really excited that the community is a part of the building blocks of this organization. So whatever you can do to help push this application forward, we would definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Patrick Fandel, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. We'd like to go on record in support of this proposal. The applicant has completed all statutory requirements for notification, including the community outreach meeting, and has maintained excellent communication to the community at large, including residents and neighborhood stakeholders. The applicants have received the full support of the Mission Hill Neighborhood Housing Services organization, which is the local community development corporation, and entered into a good neighbor agreement as noted. Again, we'd like to go on full record of support for this, and we're very excited to move forward in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. I am here on behalf of Councillor Kenzie Bach in support of Raíces. Unfortunately, the councillor is unable to attend this hearing as the City Council meeting is currently in session. After extensive conversation with both the councillor and the community, Raíces signed a comprehensive good neighbor agreement with Mission Hill Neighborhood Housing Services to address residents' safety, well-being, and quality of life concerns, as well as Raíces' financial commitment to the community. Additionally, Raíces is allowing Diablo, a local and beloved glass-blowing business, to stay in the building and has agreed to improve Terrace Street, prioritize the hiring of Mission Hill residents, and put profits back into the community. Raíces' management team is strong, composed of well-respected people from Mission Hill who know the needs of the community. In addition to the commitments memorialized in her August support letter, Councillor Bach especially appreciates Raíces' decision in May to defer their application in front of the Cannabis Board for 1 month to ensure that they were able to have further community conversations. The councillor would like to go on record in support of this applicant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials? We will now turn to individuals who have signed up online. When I call your name, please unmute yourself. Please state, if you have not provided your full name, please state your full name, and please also provide your address for the record. Your testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. You can also submit supplemental testimony in writing. Calling Mary Curran. Is Mary Curran present? Oh, Mary, I believe you are muted. There you go. Oh, you remuted yourself.
Oh, hi.
There you go.
Okay. Thanks to my daughter, she unmuted me.
Please state your address for the record.
My address is 63 Pontiac Street. I've lived here for 45 years. My husband was born on the next street over in St. Alphonsus. He's been a lifelong resident of Mission Hill. He left for 2 years to serve his country in Vietnam. Came back, bought a house next to his mother, and I moved in from Jamaica Plain. And I have come to know Jeff as a young kid at Mission Church when I was raising my kids, and I know Jeff for a long time. And when he came back to the neighborhood to run, I worked with Jeff because I believe in Jeff, and I believe in Jeff with what he's doing here. I'm glad that he made the good neighbor agreement. To me, he didn't have to because I know he's a man of his word, and I think this is good for the neighborhood. All the building that's going on here, I see it being used by everybody that doesn't live here. This is a community project that Jeff is involved in. He knows the neighborhood, and I trust him. I don't use the product myself, but I know tons of people that do. I was floored when I saw the dispensary in Brookline Savings Bank. I'm like, what? And then over to Jamaica Plain, to Hyde Square, to the bowling alley. I used to bowl in as a kid, and now I was down there looking around. It's a good investment, and I think it will do well. I just hope that they do check the IDs because the liquor stores around here don't, and the students are crazy on alcohol. So I don't think you have the same response with marijuana. And to give 10% back to the neighborhood is a tremendous opportunity because there's always people working hard to keep this community going. So thank you. And thank you, Jeff. You did a good job.
Thank you very much. Calling Bruce Bickerstaff. Please state your name. Please state your address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Bruce Bickerstaff. I live at 1536R Tremont Street. And my comments are brief. I would first like to support the project as it were. I would also like to make comment about the consideration about the operating hours. You know, that is a very tight corner at Terrace Street. And hopefully it won't create traffic issues. And as well, just the idea, the kind of deflecting the kind of reefer madness craze that continue to go on in too many communities as it relates to and understand a new industry in our community. And I hope the best of luck to all, and as well would like to continue to be part of the communication process, at least as a neighbor, to the going forward for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Tomas Gonzalez. Please state your address for the record. Is Tomas present? Calling Joseph Jr. Please state your address for the record.
Junior Joseph, 1430 Tremont Street, Boston, Mass. 02120. To the members of the board and people in attendance, appreciate the opportunity to get to speak before you today. And I too am 100% in favor of this proposal being accepted. First and foremost, I'm a Mission Hill resident, born and raised 32 years. And in terms of evolution and pushing our community forward, Races on the Hill would be a example of that. Way before this business was ever thought of, Jeffrey Sanchez, which is one of the shareholders who also born and raised in the Mission Hill community, was actively being a voice for the community, taking notes on what could better impact the community and actually delivering on that. I think a prime example of that is 10% of the proceeds goes back to the community. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, and I personally know people in the area that are qualified to work but can't find employment because they were affected by the pandemic. So why would we even question this proposal? I ask board members you take this into strong consideration because it's deeper than just a business, it's uplifting the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling, I'm sorry, give me one moment. Calling Yolanda Torres. Please state your address.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Yolanda. So I'm the new president of the Mildred C. Haley Tenant Task Force. I wish I had more than 2 minutes, but I don't. And I definitely support Jeffrey. He's been so awesome. And even though he's now no more the state rep, he's still around. Everybody still asks for him. So he's still searching everybody around. So, and definitely, he's guaranteed 100%. So he's the best support for this community.
Thank you very much. Calling. Just give me one moment. Calling Robert Figueroa. Is Robert present?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. How you doing?
Please state your address for the record.
Yes, my name is Robert Felix Figueroa. My owner of the residence of 824 Parker Street, which the business will be right behind probably the closest to any other business. And we're about 100 yards, less than 100 yards. And we're the only single family. With the Figueroa family, we support Reyes and Jeffrey Sanchez. My father and mother grew up in Mission Hill from 77 to 78. My father owned a business at 739 Parker Street, Figueroa Enterprise, a liquor store, which he sold 4 years ago. And he supports Jeffrey Sanchez. My mother, who owned Casa Chris on Huntington Ave, a business, then also a Tender Loving Daycare at the same residence at 824 Parker Street. Supports Jeffrey Sanchez. My wife and family and her family, Catero family, who owns multiple families on Hillside, 4951 and 4244, support Jeffrey Sanchez. I'm speaking on their behalf since they're not able to speak. And we're giving support to Jeffrey Sanchez. I spoke to Jeffrey and I think he's doing great jobs. I wish him best of luck, and I hope that the board and the members fully support him and grant him the license since he could prosper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Cynthia Jimenez. Is Cynthia present? Calling Carol Miranda.
Hello, Carol Miranda. I'm at 297 Center Street here in Jamaica Plain. I am in support 100% for Jeffrey Sanchez. This is where his heart is. This community is where his heart is. This is where he's dedicated a lot of his time. I am confident that Jeffrey is going to stick to his promise of providing 10% to the community and hiring, the folks in the area, especially our youth. Right now at the Mildred C. Haley, we are strengthening the youth groups and our fathers groups. And he has promised, and I know he will keep his word in hiring from this community. He may not be, here all the time, but Jeffrey's just a phone call away. And anytime a resident or a community partner is in need of Jeffrey, Jeffrey is here. So those things, along with, the safety concerns with traffic issues, we know that there's going to be some changes in the community, and this is one of the changes that we're looking forward to having because, we gotta bring about some new stuff into the community so that others can get exposed to other opportunities. So 100% in support of Jeffrey Sanchez.
Thank you very much. As a reminder, please mute yourself unless you're presenting or testifying for the board. Calling Julia Martin. Is Julia present? Calling
She's
Millie.
there. She's there. She's just having a hard time getting on, as well as Cynthia. They're both on the same line.
Go ahead. Am I on there now?
There we go.
There you are.
All right. I'm Julia Martin from the Julia Martin House, 90 Baker Street in Jamaica Plain. We're in support of Jeffrey. Of course, everybody knows I'm in support. I'm the biggest fan here in Jamaica Plain. I've been knowing Jeffrey for a long time. He's like a son to me. And I know all the work he has done here has been beneficiary to our seniors. They all love him. He's given us everything that we need. He's always been there. And I know he's been there for the Mildred C. Haley development with the children on their hot dog and hamburger nights, their backpacks, and the spaghetti dinners you gave us. and our coffee hour. We had so much fun with Jeffrey. I'm the biggest fan in supporting him in his endeavor of having marijuana dispensary. I know he's going to do a great job like he's done all these years, Jeffrey. I love you. You know I love you. And I just want to say, please give Jeffrey this job. We need him because I know he can do it. And he will show you he's a person of the community. I thank you. I'm getting a little emotional, and I think it's time for me to get off. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bryan.
And I agree. I'm Cynthia Jimenez. I also agree with Julia Martin. I work here as a resident service coordinator. And anytime that we've ever called Jeffrey, he's right there. And if he can't make it, his staff are always there. So please, he is a person that does support the community. And I also know him since a little girl too. We grew up together. So parents and his parents. Okay. So we support Jeffrey here, all at the Julia Martin house. Yay!
Yay!
You made his mother cry too.
Calling Millie Santos.
That's the mother.
Is Millie present?
Yes, I'm here.
I see your address for the record.
I live at 69 Magritte Way, apartment 506, Roxbury, Massachusetts, and Mission Hill. I know I've been in this community for 21 years. I know Jeffrey for 20 years, and he did a lot for this community. Whatever, he tried the best, all his best, 100% to get everything this community needs to get. So I support him. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Calling Adam Sarbaugh. Is Adam Sarbaugh present?
Madam Secretary and Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you. Adam Sarbaugh, 9 Oswald Street, Boston, Mission Hill, 02120. I am speaking on behalf of the Mission Hill Neighborhood Housing Services and in support of the project. Want to call out a couple things that we had recently, last month, requested I personally had requested a postponement to continue the dialogue and communication with the community, which the applicants have far exceeded with numerous meetings throughout the month before this hearing. We did reach a good neighbor agreement that was done on behalf of Mission Hill Neighborhood Housing Services, and want to go on record in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Tony Nunez. Is Tony Nunez present?
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for the invite. I know Jeffrey way so long. In fact, I used to coach him in Little League, so that's how far we go. He's my son from another mother. Maria, I love her. She's amazing. But I just want to say that it's great for the community what he's doing. One of the things that I'm really proud of, that having this business is going to be transparency to that street, Terrace Street, which there was nothing there for many years. Very, very dark and gloom, and I think the transparency is going to bring a lot of security to that street. But that said, I just want to say that, other positions that Jeffrey held in the past, I think he's going to be a great for this community, giving back. And as you can see, not only was Jeffrey, like he grew up in the community, but he knows everybody, but he chose to come back to Mission Hill to do this, to help the people and to give them employment and opportunities. I'm so proud of Jeffrey. And Mike Ross, which I know in the past, we all worked together. He also, lived in the neighborhood. And I've been here since 1969, okay? So I just want you to say that what Jeffrey said in the past, and concur. I'm the retired Boston police officer he's talking about. I was in Mission Hill when the helicopters were flying over because I was one of the guys involved. So, but I am so happy that we brought Mission Hill back to where we are. And it's individual like Jeffrey Sanchez, who has these big visions and the big view that brings back to the community. I am so proud, and I thank you, Jeffrey, and I commend you for this, and have a great day. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see that Carlos Castillo has his hand raised. Carlos, please state your address for the record.
21 Laurel Street, Roxbury, Mass. I want to go in support of Raices, Jeffrey Sanchez. When you hear the name Mission Hill, you automatically associated with Jeffrey. And on behalf of my mom and everybody in my family, Jeffrey Sanchez, we're in full support. When that name comes up and I tell people I'm from Mission Hill, they ask me, do you know Jeffrey? And I probably say, yes, he was my babysitter. So I'm putting you on the spot, Jeffrey. Good luck and go forward.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify regarding this matter?
Yes. My name is Tomas Gonzalez. I'm with Seed. I'm also a friend of Jeff's, but also someone who's in the industry. I also would like to go on record of support. Jeff has been an amazing friend, and I know that he and Mike and others who are operating this business will do an amazing job. They are slightly competitors, but we know that we have to cite as many as we can in the city of Boston, but I just want to go on record to support.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify regarding this matter? Seeing none, as a reminder, the record will remain open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. and additional testimony can be submitted.
Leslie, did Mrs. Sanchez raise her hand? I couldn't tell. Someone raised their hand. No? Okay.
I believe she did.
Mrs. Sanchez, would you like to testify?
You don't have to, but if you'd like to, we're here. We can listen.
Mami, quita el mute. Quita el mute. There we go. Okay, habla ahora.
Hello, baby. How are you doing? I'm having a lot
Talk to the chairwoman, not to me.
I know, but listen, if I don't trust what he's doing, the responsibility that I have for this, I would never approve it. But at this point, knowing him since he born, obviously, so I support his job because I know he is very responsible for his community, especially for his family. And the family is first, and I know he won't do anything that will embarrass the wife and the two kids and my granddaughters. So God bless him. And again, I give 150% support. Okay, baby?
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you all for the people who speak on favor of Jeffrey. All the people, the beautiful things saying about him. I adore that. Thank you so much for loving my son the way you do it. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. The board is going to take this matter under advisement. Thank you all very much. Just give me one moment. We'll move on to the next agenda item. Calling item 6, I&I Rose Garden LLC. The proposed license premise is 22 Birch Street, Roslindale. This is a request for a co-located manufacturing and retail cannabis dispensary license with hours of operation Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. for retail, and Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for manufacturing. This is an equity applicant. The date of the initial application was December 9th, 2020. The date of filing with Inspectional Services was December 11th, 2020. The date of the community meeting was April 27th, 2021. There is a half-mile buffer zone with another existing cannabis establishment. Before we begin with the presentation, I will ask Attorney Chayla White to testify regarding the equity certification.
Good afternoon again. I was able to certify I&I Rose Garden with the documents submitted by Kijana Rose. She is the 92% beneficial interest holder of I&I Rose Garden and exceeds the 51% ownership interest threshold set forth in the ordinance. Ms. Rose meets the following criteria. She has self-identified as Black and as of Jamaican descent. A person whose annual household income is at or below 100% of the area median income. Ms. Rose submitted her 2019 federal income tax return, which established that she does meet that criteria. And additionally, Ms. Rose is a person who has been certified by the CCC as an economic empowerment applicant. She submitted sufficient documentation to prove that she's been a resident of the city of Boston since at least 2008. And she also provided a copy of her economic empowerment certificate from the CCC. And she's also certified under the category of a person who has resided in the city of Boston for the past 7 years. Are there any questions about the certification?
Attorney White, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no questions, who is present on behalf of the applicant?
I am Kijana Rose.
All right, just give me one moment. I'm going to share my screen and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
All right, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you to Chairwoman Joyce. Thank you to the commissioners of the board. I'm really happy and also really grateful to be here today to present our proposal for a cannabis establishment at 22 Birch Street. If you could move on to the next slide, Leslie. Actually, you can continue to move on to the next slide. We are really excited. Like I said, we're proposing 2 licenses through the state, although it'll just be 1 license to the city, 1 for retail and 1 for product manufacturing. A little bit about I&I Rose Garden and just like-minded people that are running this company. We believe that cannabis presents a new age of plant-based wellness. My background is that I was raised as a Rastafarian, and so I've been around cannabis my entire life. It's always used medicinally around me. And if you could move down to the next slide. You could actually move to the next slide, Leslie. So since I started this path of cannabis, I have believed in creating educational experiences, but also really authentic experiences that are rooted in wellness. And again, use cannabis, traditional cannabis, as an opportunity to create a supportive environment for people who are looking to access the plant who have not previously been able to or who not been comfortable in doing so. I also consider I&I Rose Garden to be a luxury brand. We believe that the experiences and products that we create are premier and unique. If you could move on to the next slide. A little bit about what I've been doing. Like I said, I have been kind of on this path since 2017 when I started teaching yoga in my backyard using cannabis that I was growing. I also started making edibles and teaching people about Rastafarian culture and about cannabis in general. I really wanted to do that to create a space for people, like I said, to get education as cannabis became legalized and so that they would feel comfortable in a safe place to use it. And my edibles became really popular throughout the years. A lot of people requested them to the point where I'm sitting here before you today thinking, I really need this license. If you could move on to the next slide, please. I do have a team now of people, although I started on my own. I'll actually come back to this if I have more time later, but we do have a really great team. Moving on to the next slide. So again, I just really want to reiterate the fact that as a company, we're really committed to education, inclusion, and destigmatization. I don't want to kind of drone on about all that we've heard. Obviously, everyone here knows the opportunity that cannabis represents in terms of creating equity and generational wealth for people of color, specifically Black people who have been disenfranchised by the war on drugs. But further than that, we really need to destigmatize the ideas around cannabis because cannabis is a medicine and it should be known as that. It should be offered as that. You can move on to the next slide. Really excited to talk to you because I know that you guys have been presented with a lot of dispensaries and other things that exist, but I want to really kind of hit home that what I'm proposing here today is very different from anything you've ever seen. The product manufacturing portion of the license is so that we would bake fresh baked vegan edibles and deliver them to dispensaries throughout Massachusetts. We'll have a really small product line in the dispensaries. We're planning on starting with just 2 products. And then our retail component will be a bakery and apothecary. People will be come into our space to get our fresh baked goods, which will be different from what's available in the dispensaries. And they'll also be able to buy blended pre-rolls. So no, they will not be able to buy 1/8 and 1/2 of what you see in the dispensaries now. Actually, people will come in, they'll talk to a concierge, they'll be able to get customized pre-rolls that are blended with other herbs that I've studied and used throughout my life. And I'm really excited because this is also an opportunity to educate people about other herbs other than cannabis because there are actually so many medicinal herbs. If you could move on to the next slide. These are some really preliminary renderings of the space. Really just wanted to show you guys how different we're planning on kind of building the space. Our architect team started to create these renderings. Like I said, they're preliminary, but Again, this is a space where we expect people to come to. There will be concierges. People will sit down. They'll have a conversation with us, talk to us about why they're here, why they're using the plant that day, what they're seeking, what kind of relief they're seeking or experience they're seeking. And they'll be given recommendations based on that. If you can move on to the next slide. Again, this is a really different type of space than what you've seen. Please move on. So our goal, our timeline, which obviously is a little bit further than what this says, but our hope is that we will get licensed for product manufacturing through the state by the fall. Our plan is to phase the licensing process through the state because unlike many of the people that you've seen come before you, we are not a company that's backed by big investors. We are a group of people that all my investors are my friends and my family, people that I've known pretty much my entire life. We haven't raised necessarily a ton of money, but we have enough to get us through this process so that we can phase it, we can generate revenue through product manufacturing, and then build out our bakery the way that we want to. Also, I've talked about this before, just like how important equitable hiring is to us. We've made a commitment of 100% of our hired staff would identify as a disenfranchised population as defined by the CCC. And so in order to do that and to do that right, that takes time, which is another important reason why we're phasing the growth and generating revenue through product manufacturing first. We have a plan to pay people well above the livable wage. We hope to hire mostly full-time staff, but if we do have hourly, our minimum would be $20 an hour. Move to the slide. 4-minute warning. Next slide, please. The other thing that we wanted to talk about today is just like environment and how important that is to us. We've created, and also just how important kind of it is that we're good neighbors, which I'll get into even further. But as of right now, we've created a really low impact extraction method and schedule so that there won't be a lot of smell in the community. We have commercial smell proofing and air scrubbing technology that we'll be introducing. And then as far as other things, we've also created a green visitors incentive program just to respond to some of the issues that we've heard. Not that we've heard many complaints, but the few that we have, which are very, very familiar to Roslindale, are usually about traffic and parking. And so we created a green visitors incentive program to encourage people to walk, bike, and take the T, of which there are 8 lines of commuter rail. Slide, please. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was just security. We're working with a company called Setronics, which is a company that has worked with many dispensaries throughout the state. They've put together a plan for us that it goes above and beyond CCC compliance. Furthermore, we'll have full-time security on site anytime that the store is open. Next slide, please. This is what I'm most excited to talk about, Roslindale. This is my community. This is the neighborhood that I've grown up in. And so I'm super excited to be putting this business. It's certainly no coincidence that we're opening up this business here in Roslindale. We have a lot of ideas to engage with the community. I've already done a lot of community engagement work. I've been doing community engagement work, honestly, for the last 4 years. And I've known, how the community feels, and I've been tapping into that space for a while. If you can move into the next slide. But yeah, we've already worked with the Roslindale Village Main Streets. We've gotten a letter of support from them. I'm also meeting with another neighborhood association later this month, but we want to make sure that we're really transparent, always working with community, creating partnerships and alliances. I have a background in community engagement. I got my master's in public health from Northeastern. I also worked at Northeastern for community engagement, amongst many other things that I've done. Kind of ironically seeing some people on this call today that used to come at me, but neither here nor there. Either way, we really want to create a safe and kind of sustainable plan. We know that all the CCC requirements will be fully upheld. Nobody will be able to see into our space, but we still thank you that we have a really strong community presence. If you could move on to the next slide. Also, I will say that, we have a plan to grow, and we hope that Roslindale will be the right neighborhood to do that. Lastly, I just want to mention that, we've done a lot of work speaking to the community, making sure that we're hearing what people are saying. We've not heard a lot of complaints, to be honest with you. A lot of the businesses are really excited to have us there. However, we have heard some residents speaking on parking and transportation. This is a Roslindale issue. This is not just unique to our business, but we know all of the availability of parking. There's a parking lot at Taft Hill Terrace, which we will direct people to who come. There's also the commuter rail parking lot, which is available. And there is some street parking. However, we don't expect that most of our clientele will necessarily we do expect that most of our clientele will be from the neighborhood. People will walk, people will bike. As heard in our community meeting, we have a really environmentally conscious clientele. And we have our green incentive program. So yes, we have had a lot of conversations in the community. We'll continue to have conversations in the community. We've gotten a letter of support from Walk Up Roslindale, which is another really important community-based organization. And just want to say thank you again for hearing us out. We're really excited and really looking forward to moving forward and building up Roslindale.
Thank you very much. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I just have a couple of questions. In your buffer zone statement, you said that there'll be no product. Can you hear me? You said there'll be no product overlap with the other Rosendale location.
Yeah.
So are you making 100% of what you're selling? Are you manufacturing it yourself? Everything that you're selling is something you're making on site?
Pretty much. The only thing is we won't be growing the cannabis ourselves, obviously, but even the cannabis that we buy to put into pre-rolls, it will be blended with other herbs. So we'll be rolling it ourselves. We'll be manufacturing it ourselves, basically.
Okay, and I'm taking a look at the licensed premise space. What percentage of is it 650 feet?
It's about 600 square feet.
So how much of that space is going to be retail and how much is going to be manufacturing?
Half and half. It's the downstairs floor, which is about 300 square feet, will be the commercial kitchen where we'll be doing product manufacturing, and the upstairs will be the retail space.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do, and they're more curiosity based. You say you're going to be blending the cannabis with other herbs. And excuse me if this is a question out of ignorance of mine, which it probably is. How do you learn how to do that? I mean, is there a license for that, or is it, how do you learn what herbs to use and stuff like that?
This is something that I've been doing and been around for my entire life. I have studied herbs extensively for a really long time. I don't necessarily consider myself an herbologist, but I'm getting there. And one on staff at some point too, because I think that would be really amazing.
Is this something that, I don't know, it almost sounds like it's sort of medicinal. So I'm wondering, is there something like a pharmacology course or something that you have to take to make sure that these things don't interact with one another? And
these are all
thing too about singles. Are you selling these things as single cigarettes, single joints, or are you going to be like, say if you make a blend, would you be selling this customer 2, 3, or 4? Because I know we've had some requirements that other cannabis dispensaries not sell single joints.
That is our plan, is to sell blended pre-rolls, yes. And yeah, as far as there is no, it's not a pharmacological offering. So no, there would be no pharmacology degree established to that. Again, this is just herbs, organically grown herbs that people have been using for centuries.
But you will be selling them as single units, not a package.
Yes, singles, they can get packs, but it won't be just flower.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, thanks. Employment plan. It's not really specific, right? So you mentioned something in your thing about you start at a minimum of $20 an hour.
Yeah. So
how many people are you thinking of employing?
So we're thinking of having 10 hourly people to start on retail, but again, it's really not our goal. We'd really rather have full-time employees. It just depends on what we can afford and how we can grow that. So the idea would be that we would always have as many full-time employees as possible so that we can give people full benefits. And like I said, make sure that we're paying people a really strong salary. It's just that right now we're really just developing the plan as we go along. We have a goal of having ultimately 20 people on full-time staff at that site, but we don't expect that to be built out for 2 years.
And that 20 would be split between the manufacturing piece and the retail piece.
100%.
Okay, you're thinking, so you're not growing, but you're manufacturing it, but you're growing the other herbs, right?
No, we'll be sourcing those from organic places.
Organic places. And talk a little bit about the diversity of those organic places. Are you working with other?
We do have a commitment
BIPOC?
to supplier diversity. Absolutely. This is another thing that's really important to us. And this is another reason why we are committed to taking our time to make sure that we can reach those goals and really engage with a diverse vendors all around.
So you want to do manufacturing first and then retail. Why? How come not the other way around?
Because we can generate more revenue a lot quicker from products manufacturing.
So from the bakery and
Better. The retail experience is honestly just to create an experience and continue to stay with community engagement, because really you'll probably see us again once social consumption licensing comes back up.
Okay.
Not for the same space, but we plan to grow.
All right, Yadi. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Gian, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, not really. I just think it's a really interesting concept. I know that area really well. Seems like a good fit. It does seem rather small. Is there concerns about, time in the store, or people, lining up outside? Because I know a lot of those spaces are small, close together. You have the brewery, you have the restaurants, you have the hair braiding place. So I just wondered if there was any thoughts.
We have an appointment-based system for retail. We will be able to take walk-ins, but our plan is that even if someone comes and walks in, they would still have to wait for an appointment. And we have several different appointment types. So we have like quicker 10-minute appointments, 15-minute appointments, and then you could do like a whole tarot reading. Like we have a longer, extensive appointment if someone wants to really sit down and get into it. And then we also plan to have like a walk-up section where people who pre-ordered, who they've been with us before, they know us, they know what they want. They're just excited about whatever donuts we have that day. They can just kind of order, come and pick up and go.
And in terms of what you're selling, is everything blended, or is there anything that's just going to be pure flower?
There will be no pure flower.
Yeah. And for what you're manufacturing, you're selling it to other dispensaries. Are you delivering it as well, or
delivering it as well
directly from yours as a manufacturer? Okay.
Yeah, our goal is to have a full vertical someday. So we are trying to get there, and this is our first steps.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now turn to public testimony, beginning with elected officials or representatives of elected officials.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Cannabis Board. This is Joe Coppinger with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. The Mayor's Office would like to go on record in support of the application at 22 Bird Street. The application completed all notification requirements prior to the April 27th public meeting. Since the public meeting, we've received a plethora of support from neighbors and community members based off the fact that Ms. Rose is a local Rosendale resident who's looking to start a business in the community she grew up in. Neighbors also expressed how a location within Rosendale Square, the commercial district, would be a better location for businesses like I&I Rose Garden. Another point of support came from the fact that the operation plans on using an appointment-based system to have a better impact on crowd control. We would also like to note that there have been concerns raised around this proposal, the main one being that the board is listed in the public notice, which is the buffer zone conflict with the proposal at 882 South Street. Many neighbors expressed their concern with two shops being close to each other, as well as this potentially being the fourth location in the Rosendale neighborhood. Neighbors have also noted that this could potentially bring addition of more traffic to an already congested area. Overall, we, the Mayor's Office, believe I&I Rose Garden will be an excellent addition to the Rosendale community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify?
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jordan Frias here from Councilor Ricardo Arroyo's office. We'd just like to go on the record in support of this applicant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials? We will now turn to public testimony, beginning with individuals who signed up online. As a reminder, when I state your name, please unmute yourself and state your address for the record. Please note your testimony will be limited to 2 minutes. Calling Bill Coyne.
Hi, I'm Bill Coyne, 15 Heathcote Street in Roslindale. I've been a resident for about 40 years, was very involved in creating the Rosendale Village Market. So I am very concerned about the neighborhood. And it just seems to me that this is not a good fit. We already have 3 other places that are already approved. I understand that this would be different, and I'm sorry I missed the public hearing. I may have been able to learn more. But my concern is more the location. This sounds, this is largely manufacturing. Why would you put a manufacturing location in the middle of Main Street? I mean, the Birch Street is kind of the primary high-end district. You really want businesses that are going to generate a lot of foot traffic. And it seems to me this is not a good fit. It's really the living room of the community between the courtyard and Birch Street. And I am a little concerned about smell proofing because there are going to be a lot of people eating out in the courtyard or in the other, if that's a concern. And the parking, my suspicion is people end up parking in the Rosendale Village Market lot, which is where they park right now. So I think that while there are many locations in Rosendale will be great for a plant, particularly if there's a need to expand later, this is not a good location for a place that's primarily manufacturing. It ought to be a retail location that really fits with the other businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling Matthew Lawler. Is Matthew present?
Yep, I am. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I want to go on record in support of the application. I'm a Rosendale resident. I live at 15 Basto Terrace, Rosendale 02131. I'm actually in between the permitted site on South and Walter and this site, and fully support both the concept of bringing this business into the square and to the location it's going to. And I believe that the plans that the applicant has with respect to sort of the appointment system that they're working on, sort of the overall concept, and the split between manufacturing and retail, to me, I think works, given that the manufacturing is to be located in the basement. I would see it as not substantially different than any other sort of kitchen-based use in the square. So I think it's really just a great fit. We'll bring more foot traffic, which the square needs. And I think it'll be a great addition to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that Wyatt Kelly has his hand raised. Wyatt, please state your address for the record.
Hi, my name is Wyatt Kelly, and I live at 44 Loomis Street, apartment 205, Malden, Massachusetts.
All right, go ahead, please.
So I'd like to, although I live in Malden, I make the trip once a week, usually to Rosendale. I did submit an email, so I'll try to keep it brief, but I am very in favor of I Rose Garden. I attend for yoga once a week, and it has been life-changing for me over the last 3 years. I grew up in Vermont in a very small town, so we support small businesses in our community up there. And coming down, I've been in Massachusetts for about 2 years, or excuse me, no, 20 years now, 19 years, and that's some change. That's something I look for. Small businesses is still something I'm very much connected with. And the I Rose Garden, it being in Rosendale, which I hadn't heard of until I stumbled across the yoga class online, made the trip down there. Didn't think I would ever be traveling an hour each way, you know, jumping on the Orange Line and walking 1.5 miles or sometimes taking an Uber once a week. But here I am because it's Kijana and the I Rose Garden is truly a special experience that is very intentional in everything that they do and really care about the people that come to their business. And I have really received a lot of healing, both physically, mentally, spiritually, and do consume the products that she produces. And they are very different than anything you get in a dispensary, which, by the way, I have one 4 blocks from my home. So I could walk to a dispensary. There's yoga everywhere. There's yoga online. But once a week, I make it a point to come down to Rosendale, so much so that I've thought about moving down there. And the rest of my, what I put is in the email, but I would like to say that any community anywhere should want to have someone like Kijana in this business in there because it strengthens the community. And I've had many businesses that I grew up with that cared about not just making money, but about being active in the community and strengthening it. And that's exactly what she does with I Rose Garden. So thank you very much. I also submitted an email testimony, and I appreciate you, Madam Chairwoman, and the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify regarding this matter? All right, the board is going to take this matter under advisement. Again, the record is kept open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. We're going to take a 3-minute recess, and then we'll finish with the rest of the agenda. All right, we're going to get started again in just one more minute. All right, thank you all. Calling item 7, calling Roster Roots LLC. The proposed license premise is 21 Broad Street, downtown. This is a request for a recreational cannabis dispensary license with proposed hours of operation Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is a non-equity applicant. The date of initial application was August 18th, 2020. The date of filing with Inspectional Services was November 4th, 2020. The date of the community meeting was December 17th, 2020. There is a half-mile buffer zone conflict with an existing cannabis establishment. Who is present on behalf of the applicant?
I am Fernando Bent-Mullings.
Just give me one moment. You will have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board and everyone that was patiently able to wait for me to present. My name is Fernando Bent-Mullings. Like I said, I'll be proposing the plan for Roster Roots to be hopefully located at 21 Broad Street in downtown Boston. Next slide, please. So this is just a glimpse of what I'm going to go over today. Things that we felt that the Cannabis Board found important along with ourselves and what the community has told us. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about us. That cutie in the middle is my son, Clark. That's my beautiful wife, Hillary. And that is myself on the right. Hillary and I are the only owners of Roster Roots. We have not borrowed money. We don't plan to borrow money. Everything over the last 18 months at this location has been money and time out of our own pocket. So next slide, please. Just a little bit about my career background. I was a personal trainer in the state of Massachusetts for 14 years. I worked at MCI Framingham for the incarcerated women of the state. And I also worked for a company called Aftermath Inc., helping families deal with crime scene cleanups in businesses and in their homes. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about our diversity and inclusion plan. Next slide, please. So Roster Roots, we fully intend on being a business that is ran and operated by people of color, women, minorities, people with disability, people from the LGBTQ community, veterans, and people that would pass convictions. We want to make sure that we represent Boston for the melting pot that it actually is, and make sure that it is very apparent to not only our staff, but to our customers that come to visit us. Next slide, please. With our positive impact plan, we're working with the Last Prisoner Project and their Partner for Freedom program. We fully understand that the unemployment rate for someone who would pass conviction is actually 5 times higher than the general public. And what we plan to do is work with them in their programs that they've been very successful with throughout the country and helping these men and women get back into the community positively through work, through training, through opportunities with working with us or with a different dispensary. So we're really excited about that and the program and moving forward with them. Next slide, please. A little bit about our employment plan. Next slide, please. So with our employment plan, we fully intend on hiring majority of our staff from Boston. Besides, like I said, hiring women and minority and people with criminal records as part of our staff. We fully intend on being in the top 10% when it comes to dispensaries with salary and hourly pay throughout the state. We're going to have a individualized employee package that is not something that we assume that our employees need, but more so having that conversation with them of what they actually need. If it's someone that needs help with paying with daycare, children in the household that might want to be part of a after school program, stuff like that. Great quality health insurance, things that we want to make sure that our employees feel like we are taking care of them, just like they're a part of our family, because we believe they are. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of community feedback and support we've had. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in December, when I first had my first meeting with the community of Wharf District, I made a promise to them that I would attend every meeting that they have. I've been to every meeting they've had. I'm actually part of the Wharf District Task Force, helping deal with the rise of sea level in the Wharf District. We actually had a blood drive with Red Cross for sickle cell anemia 2 weeks ago, May 20th, in Roxbury. So we're just trying to show the community that who we are and how we plan on being a fully run mom and pop shop style dispensary, that people know who we are and what we're trying to do. Next slide, please.
5-minute warning.
Thank you. You can actually skip that slide. Just a couple of nice things that people have said about us. Another great, very nice comment we got from one of the owners in the area. So when it comes to parking and transportation, next slide, please. We are overly blessed with public transportation between the green, blue, and orange line, even the red line. They're either a 5 to 10 minute walk from us. So besides us already wanting to encourage people to make a day trip out of the Wharf District, that when they come see us, we don't want you to just come see us. We want you to come spend the day, go to the Greenway, go to the aquarium, grab food at Servia, and then come see us on your way out. We'll also have over 1,000 public parking spaces in the area that's within a 5-minute walk. I think it's like 0.2 miles actually to all of them. I've been in talks with 75 State Street Garage to do some kind of discount with customers that park there and make purchase with us. So we know we're blessed with that, and we just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Next slide, please. So just about our location safety. So this is our beautiful building, 21 Broad Street. The building's over, I believe it's 120 years old. We love the way it looks from the outside, although we plan on doing a lot of work on the inside. The last thing I want to do is have our building stand out. I want our customer service to stand out and the products that we carry to stand out. We're tucked in behind Espresso Love and in between 75 State Street building. If you're not looking for us, you're not going to find us. We want that to stay the same. The only thing we plan on doing to the outside is having a little sign over our door. There's no plan on having crazy bright lights or music thumping out or smells or anything like that. We want to be respectful to the community. Next slide, please. So when it comes to the safety and diversion plan, we will have 3 different times that ID will be verified. It will be first at the security door, second in the waiting vestibule, and then the 3rd time at checkout at point of sale. I understand the out-of-state licensing questioning. We fully intend on having 2 IDs need to be present for out-of-state license with pictures of the individual. And we know kids are going to try to get in, people underage are going to try to get in, but we're going to do our best to make sure that we have a great system in place to address it. Next slide, please. So our security advisor, this is a picture of Mike Allen. Mike has 29 years of police experience. He's been in the cannabis field now in the state of Massachusetts, helping other dispensaries now going on 5 years. Mike's already reached out to the police department down there. They have a copy of our security plan. They've been to the site. We have their number. So we fully intend on working with the police department down there. Next slide, please. So this slide is actually a video. I'm not going to show that video because it's 4 minutes. Next slide, please. Hopefully the board will be able to take a look at it. So this is a blueprint of our building. The picture on the right is the 1st floor. The picture on the left is the basement. So our building is 4 floors, 3 of which will be available to the public, 4,500 square feet. when it comes to queuing, we don't see that being an issue with all that space. Again, with it being 3 floors, anything that you can do on the second or third floor, we can definitely do on the first floor as well. So we're excited for that. If when we are busy, when it comes to queuing, if we are unable to keep everyone in the building, we're gonna have something similar to Cheesecake Factory where they kind of send you a text. So I might send somebody, go get a coffee at Espresso Love, and then we'll text them and let them know when they can come back. Second slide, please. This is just a picture of the second floor on the left and a picture of the third floor on the right. Next slide, please. And a picture of our roof and the 4th floor that will be off the limits to the public. Next slide, please. So just in closing, I just want to thank the board. Really appreciate all the help that we've been given over this crazy COVID year and 18 months of being at the location, and we're ready for questions.
Thank you very much. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Thanks, Mr. Bent Mullings, for addressing the IDs. So you covered that one for me. How many employees at this location?
So we're planning on 25 to 35. We've been going back and forth for 25 and 30, 30 and 35. We want to have as many full-time employees as possible, from our security team to upper management, to bud tenders, to just having backup people that are moving stuff up and down the floors.
Okay, and as far as the buffer zone goes, this board, we're the citing authority, and in the buffer zone statement, it states that you're within the buffer zone for 2 potential locations, Patriot Care, and then I forget the name of the other one on State Street. But I'd like for you to expand upon, for the purposes of our understanding, the public need for another license in this area. That's the standard that we would look at when we would make some sort of buffer zone, when we would pierce the buffer zone.
Okay.
So that I didn't see that in your buffer zone statement. So if you could, in your own words, tell us, how you meet that public need.
So the Patriot Care, I believe, is medical. And we have been under agreement with the building since January of last year. So when we first started this whole process of paying to hold a location, COVID hadn't happened yet. There was only one space that we had to worry about. And then COVID happened, everything got slowed down, and a equity applicant was able to come in, and that's the other location. So it kind of put us in a weird spot. We understood that this was going to happen, but we also appreciate the amount of flow that is in that area. And friendly competition never hurt anybody. I think with our location being at an area where there's so much foot traffic, I think on LoopNet we're like 100 when it comes to foot traffic. It's just so densely populated. And what we plan on doing too is we're going to be more of a mom and pop shop style, where I want people to experience us, but with the community at the same time. So I've been in talks with other restaurants in the area of trying to figure out a way that we can give some kind of discount, and we'll have menus for Servia or Espresso Love when we have to kind of send people out. We don't want it to, the last thing I want is people to come to the Wharf District just to see us and then leave. For me personally, I didn't experience that area before January 1st when I first saw the building. And I was able to kind of be like, wow, I didn't know there was a greenway here. It's like a huge park. I have a 3-year-old son that can play there. The aquarium's there. So we want to make sure that we're part of the community and not just another pot shop that's downtown.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any other questions, Leslie.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, ma'am, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions?
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about your training? You talked in your application about having training for your employees to help them grow.
So what we plan on doing is having our employees have space for growth. I've been at businesses before where I've seen other people work their butt off, or I've worked my butt off, and then someone swoops in and takes a position that's higher than mine that becomes available. That's the last thing that I want to do. I want to give our employees the ability to grow, not only with us, but to grow on their own. So if we have someone that's interested in getting into cultivation, like I want to be able to direct them which area to go. We worked with a company called Greenlight Business Solutions. They have been the best that we could ask for with help, with figuring out which directions we need to go in, what do we want to do, and we fully intend on making them accessible to our employees that want to venture out and do something on their own. And I want to be able to be in a position where obviously I'm investing in people as them being part of my staff. I want to be able to invest in people, go out and do their own thing. And that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm a middle child, so like I have lots of friends that are older and younger, and I like to help as much as I can. Some might say overhelp, but I want to give the opportunity to our employees to build inside our company, but at the same time, if they decide they want to open a car wash, I can at least send them in a direction of like, all right, you need a business plan and stuff like that.
And so you would incentivize that car wash?
Yes,
somehow
I would totally,
to-
I would put it all over our Instagram, whatever I need to do.
Would there
especially-
would there be any sort of profit sharing to incentivize that car?
No,
Okay.
I'm not ignorant enough to think that I need to dabble in anything else. Like this is my dream, is to have generational wealth for my son off of what I've done, and to give that opportunity to somebody else to do their own thing. For me, that's huge. So I wouldn't expect anything in return.
So you talked about giving back though to the community, not just financially. I think you said with opportunity. Is that along the same lines as training the employees and all that?
I think what we want to do is give back wherever the community says. So for me, I was raised in Taunton. I call myself a Taunton kid. I lived there for 20 years. I've seen what drugs have done to that area. I've seen malls come and go. I've seen a lot. So with Boston, obviously, I want to give where we can, but I don't want to make my own assumptions of what a community needs. I think that's where time, money is wasted. I want to reach out to community leaders and ask them, how can I help? That's what we did with Red Cross. I wanted to do a blood drive downtown Boston. They said, how about we do something in Roxbury and target it for sickle cell anemia and try to get attention that way. So that, like, I have ideas, but I'm not built in on that idea where it's set in stone, and I'm totally open to whatever feedback I get.
So you're downtown at the Wharf, sort of edge of financial district. What
The Wharf District, yes, sir.
Yeah. What communities would you think of targeting? I mean, that community is lots of hotels and aquarium and.
Well,
so
the issues that
target effort.
the issues that they're dealing with right now are the rise of the sea level that's actually going on right now, and the impact that'll have over the next 20 years, where we have monthly meetings that I'm part of that council, where we're trying to figure out, one, where's the money going to come from to actually help these buildings? And two, how do we prevent anything from happening if our plan doesn't work? So with going to these Wharf District meetings I think it's the second Tuesday of every month from 5 to 7. With going to these meetings, I have an ear to the ground of what everyone's talking about in that community. For me, it's not as heavily populated with residents that might need the help, and I'm aware of that. And I think that's a bonus that we get, where we can kind of pick, where it's like I might have a single mother that lives in Dorchester that's employed by me, and her son's school can't afford to do something, and then now I have that as an option, And that's something I will talk over with our staff. That's another thing that we feel how we're going to give power to our staff, where when we bring somebody on or promote someone, it will be a discussion that we have as a whole, not just me and two other people that maybe they don't see every day. I think a healthy working place is a good working place. I've always said I want a dispensary that people have the knowledge of a Apple store, but the service is like Trader Joe's, where you're like, I don't know what this person had for breakfast, but I want it because they're always in a good mood there. And I want to kind of put that into a field, into a business that I don't think exists. I haven't been to all the dispensaries, but I haven't seen that one-on-one interactions where you almost don't want to leave and you kind of want to hang out. And I want to bring that to Wharf District and be able to extend that olive branch out to, oh, have you guys eaten here? Have you been to the Greenway? Like things like that. That's kind of how I'm thinking. We've been in this process for so long that we've been able to come up with ideas and either shoot them down or dive into them more. And it's really exciting. And I'm excited to see what we can finally come up with.
And lastly, your 20 to 25 employees, how are you recruiting them and what are you paying them?
So we're going to recruit through the meetings with Wharf District because that's directly with Boston. We'll also reach out to different communities in the area. We predominantly want Boston residents. We'll put ads in the Boston Globe and try to incentivize people to come. I think with COVID coming back, kind of finally going away, the idea of job fairs are going to be a thing that comes back, and being able to send a representative that represents us, that knows what we're looking for and not necessarily need a ton of knowledge in cannabis, but is willing to learn. I think it's such a new business that you can't expect everyone to be perfect from the gate, straight out of the gate, and you need to teach people, and it's a lot easier to pick from areas like that. So we're really excited with what we're coming up with and just moving forward.
Considering the Wharf District is probably not the district most impacted by the war on drugs.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree.
Okay. And what did you say, like starting salary and benefits?
So we're aiming to be in the top 10% with the state when it comes to dispensaries. So another thing that we're going to do with our employment plan is we're going to have a tipping system set up with our point of sale that will go directly to that bud tender or whoever served that person. That's money that will incentivize great customer service for everybody. And it's also a way for me to track who's really good at customer service, where it's like, okay, I have a position coming up in management. I know who to reach out to be like, hey, I'm able to see how well you do with tips. That's not a fluke. And I can kind of encourage them to maybe decide to take a different position or move up and kind of have that discussion with them at that time.
So the number again.
Excuse me?
Starting salary area?
Whatever, we're gonna look up to see what the actual number is for the average dispensary and then make sure that we're in that 10%.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Guillen, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now going to move to public testimony, beginning with elected officials or their representatives.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is John Romano from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. The applicant had met with the Wharf District Council on December 15th and had been at an abutters meeting on December 17th. At both meetings, they received positive feedback from the community, as well as a letter of support from the Wharf District Council. Although this is in a buffer zone, they would still be a good addition to the neighborhood, and our office would like to go on record in support of the project.
Thank you very much. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify regarding this matter?
Good afternoon, Madam of the Chair, members of the board. Ana Calderon from Councilor Flynn's office. The councilor provided a letter of non-opposition and it reads as follows. I've met with the proponent of this dispensary, and I understand the proponent has conducted a community process and met with its neighbors. The proponents made commitments to its neighbors that it will meet the standards of the community in terms of quality of life and security. This proposal has also received a letter of non-opposition from the Wharf District Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials? We will now turn to individuals who have signed up. As a reminder, when I call your name, please unmute yourself. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. You can also submit additional written comments. When I call your name, please also state your address for the record. Calling Luisa Chiesa.
Hi, I'm Luisa Chiesa. I live at 62 Farragut Avenue in Somerville, and I would like to thank the board for letting me testify for Rasta Roots, and I would like to go on record with my full support for the application. I have known Fern Bentmullings for several years, and he's one of the most dedicated, caring, and kind person I've ever met in my life. I'm sure he and his wife will do a great job as business owners of Rasta Roots, and I'm confident they will be a great addition to ownership of businesses in the Boston, and particularly in the downtown area close to Broad Street, which is an area I know very well despite living in Somerville. They will be very competent and caring owners of a small family-owned, minority-owned recreational cannabis dispensary. Their commitment to the community will not go unnoticed when they open their doors and their store. I would like to end with saying that Boston prides itself for supporting Black and Brown-owned small businesses, and so I believe that approving and supporting Fern and Hillary Bentmullings in opening Rasta Roots would be a further step forward in the commitment of Boston to improve and strengthen its diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that I think the city will be proud to have them as one of the minority-owned businesses in the city. Thank you for giving me time to talk.
Thank you very much. Calling Cameron Murray. Is Cameron Murray present?
Hi, yes, thank you for letting me speak. So I just want to say I'm in full support of Fern and Hillary's plan. So through Fern's work as a corrections officer, he has seen firsthand the effects of recidivism in the community. And I think it's too important that now he wants to make his mission to educate others on cannabis use and give back to his own community, such as offering jobs to those with past drug convictions, as he's previously mentioned. But this business would have a trickle-down effect for all other surrounding communities as well, as it would be allowing for education opportunities on cannabis use and in efforts to lower crime rates, lessen recidivism, giving chances to those who are historically not given the same opportunities, such as minority groups within Boston, and overall creating healthier and more productive communities within the state. But despite the buffer zone issues, Rasta Roots is special in that it's committed to ending the stigma on cannabis use, especially its association with communities of color. And this business would just benefit us all and work towards a more inclusive and just cultural norm surrounding cannabis use, with hopes of also changing the norm around post-incarcerated individuals and misconceptions on drug offenses in general, which overall just makes this business really special, and it's super dedicated to its mission on change. So thank you for letting me speak, and again, full support for Fern Hillary.
Thank you. Could you please state your address for the record?
I'm sorry, Tullamore Avenue, Lakeville, but I also do live in Boston as well for school.
Thank you very much. Calling Sarah Rosenfeld. Calling Gary Lisk.
Hello, I'm Gary Lisk from 83 Woods Ave in Somerville, and I'm in strong support of Fern, Hillary, and Rasta Roots. I was trained by Fern at a Somerville gym probably for 2.5 years, and so I got to know him and his wife over the years. And almost from day one, it seemed like we were encouraging Fern, asking him, why are you working for someone else? He always seemed to be someone who should be running his own business. And in fact, periodically, you'd see some garage or something shut down, and we say, Fern, how come you don't look at that that facility and somehow open up some kind of a business? It just has a lot of great qualities. So really good guy, very sincere. And if I had to say one thing, it's what you see is what you get with Fern. He's got this very sincere attitude. He really does want to contribute to the neighborhood, to Boston, and career opportunities for employees, it may sound artificial, but it's not. It's just something that he definitely lives what he believes, and you can sense that. So I'm in really high support of Rasta Roots, Fern and Hillary, and I think they'll be great business owners.
Thank you very much. Calling Brian Fisher. Is Brian
Here. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Brian Fisher. I live on 571 Richmond Street in East Taunton. And I've known Fern for about 25 years. He's hands down one of the best guys I know. His wife, Hillary, is also an incredible person. And to sort of echo what Gary said, Fern is one of those guys that like he means what he says. He's probably the most genuine person I know. He has plans on giving back to the community. I mean, he's already had the blood drive. He's putting all that into effect already. He's probably the most driven person I've ever met. Like the second he decided he was gonna lock this in and this is what he was gonna do, he is focused 100% of his attention into doing this and working with that company Greenlight. I know he's crossed all his T's and dotted his I's. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'd really just like to speak to the character of Fern. He's just a great person. I mean, if you get to know him, it's a pleasure. And I am in full support of anything he does, especially this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Calling Tony Arnold.
Hello, I'm Tony Arnold, and I live at 11 Irving Street in Somerville. Thank you for your time today, and it's a real pleasure to be here to be in support of Fern and Hillary. I've known Fern for about 3 years, also trained with him at a gym in Somerville. My background is as a classical musician and as a lifelong educator. And when I first went to work with Fern, his commitment to education is something that he lives with every fiber of his being. Our abilities to converse over the gap of discipline of different disciplinarities was never impeded. He was always interested in finding the edge, finding the way to help me live my best self in terms of the physical disciplines. But then also as we got to know each other, I got to know how extraordinary he was and how broad his worldview is and how he is able to speak with anybody on any topic genuinely, with genuine interest and remembering things, and that he takes that back and then applies that to the next endeavor, whatever that is. And so the stated mission of education of Rasta Roots is on the website and that I've talked about with Fern before is absolutely genuine, and it is going to be employed by somebody who knows how to talk to people and also who has the discipline, the self-discipline to drill down deep and get all of the knowledge possible in order to help other people. I've seen it demonstrated. I think it's very clear by other people who have talked about this today.
All right, that's 2 minutes. We appreciate it. You can also submit written testimony. Calling Derek Alton. Calling Randall Edmonston. Are there any individuals who who have not previously testified who do wish to testify regarding this matter?
Hi, thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Oliver Cherry. I'm a resident of Denver, Colorado. For the past 3 years, from 1993 to 2018, I lived in Norton Avenue in Taunton, Massachusetts. I've grown up with Fern since about 5th grade. Oh, sorry.
I think we might have lost that connection. I think it was a little jarbled. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify?
Yes, if I may go.
Yes, please go. Please state your address, your full name and your address. For the record.
My name is Christopher O'Donnell. My address is 16 Hancock Street in Winchester. I've known Fern for 5 years. I met him like Tony did through training in what seems like another lifetime ago. And we've become really good friends. I'm involved in the Boston entrepreneurial scene. And so it's been really, really interesting to see Fern come to this concept. He went through the thought process and research process for a lot of different ways of contributing to the community, and particularly for this mission of employing and growing people of color in these jobs and contributing to the community. And I really support him in this. I started a software company that has about 30 employees in downtown Boston. I'm chief product officer at a company called HubSpot in Cambridge. And so I'm around a lot of great Boston entrepreneurs. And I think Fern is really going to be the next great Boston entrepreneur. And I think it's a great location. I've checked out the design he has. It's beautiful. I've met with Greenlight Labs. They really know what they're doing. And I'm just fully in support of his entrepreneurial DNA. I think he's the kind of leader that that we'd all like to see come up in Boston. I think he's going to hire a great team and be a wonderful leader for us in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify regarding this application? The record will remain open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. and the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you all very much. Calling item 8. The applicant is Exhale New England Dispensary. The proposed license premise is 888 Morton Street in Mattapan. This is an application for a recreational cannabis dispensary license with proposed hours of operation, Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is a certified equity applicant. The date of initial application was October 22nd, 2020. The date of filing with Inspectional Services was October 23rd, 2020. And the date of the community meeting was March 24th, 2021. Before we begin with the presentation, I will ask Attorney Chayla White to testify regarding the equity certification.
Good afternoon again. I was able to certify Exhale New England Dispensary from the documentation provided to me by Mr. Omar Lawrence and Mr. Jarrell Perkins. They each are 25.5% beneficial interest holders of Exhale New England, meeting the 51% ownership threshold set forth in the ordinance. Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Perkins qualify under the following criteria: a person who has resided in an area of disproportionate impact as defined by the CCC for at least 5 of the past 10 years. Mr. Lawrence submitted a copy of his proof of residency certificate from the Boston Elections Department and utility statements that establish he has resided in Dorchester from 2004 through the present. The area in Dorchester that he lives in is in Census Tract 09200. I might have missed a 0920000, which has been designated by the CCC as an area of disproportionate impact in Suffolk County. Mr. Perkins submitted a copy of a proof of residency certificate from the Boston Elections Department as well, and also submitted utility statements that establish he has resided in Dorchester from 2011 through 2016. The neighborhood in Dorchester in which Mr. Perkins lives is in Census Tract 92400, which has been designated as an area of disproportionate impact in Suffolk County pursuant to CCC guidelines. The next category under which they qualified is a person who resided in the city of Boston for the past 7 years. Again, Mr. Lawrence submitted a proof of residency certificate and utility statements that establish he's been a resident of Boston since at least 2004 through the present. And similarly, Mr. Perkins submitted a proof of residency certificate that establishes he has resided in the city of Boston from 2003 through 2020. Both Mr. Perkins and Mr. Lawrence have self-identified as Black and African American. And finally, Mr. Lawrence has been certified by the CCC as an economic empowerment applicant. Are there any questions about this, the certification?
Seeing no questions, I will note that this specific address, when you put it in, it sometimes comes up as Mattapan, it sometimes comes up as Dorchester, but it's the same zip code. So just in case there are questions, there might have been some confusion, but the address is correct. Who is going to be presenting on behalf of the applicant?
Anthony Perkins.
All right, Anthony, you're going to have 10 minutes. Jasmine Nguyen, our project manager, will give you a notice at 5 minutes and at 8 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to explain the plans and the vision of Exhale New England Dispensary. Next slide. Exhale New England will be a new recreational retail cannabis dispensary company that will focus on the sale and supply of recreational cannabis products to age-appropriate consumers in the Mattapan neighborhood. Next slide. But before we get into the details, I'd like to introduce myself and my partners. Next slide. To start, my name is Anthony Perkins, and I'm currently an operational finance manager for a top consulting firm in Boston. Next slide. Sharon Perkins Allen is an attorney at law and a professor in Massachusetts. Next slide. Jarrell Perkins is a finance director at a global healthcare NGO. Next slide. And Omar Lawrence is a union electrician as well as a successful restaurateur. We are all Boston natives and have strong ties to the community we hope to serve. Next slide. Our goal is to make Exhale a high quality establishment that will market high quality products and offer high quality shopping experience. And we see this as an opportunity to do something we think can be successful and be able to give back. Next slide. Our proposed site is at 888 Morton Street in Mattapan. It's a commercial location with over 2,000 square feet with a parking lot large enough for approximately 15 to 20 cars. Next slide. You can see the current look of the building requires some attention, but after investing approximately $250,000 into the building and interior, we hope to have a beautiful business that will add value to the neighborhood. Next slide. Here are the schematics that give you an idea of how we plan to set up the interior. There's a separate vestibule where clients first enter before, clientele first enter before they are led into the sales floor. Next slide. Once on the sales floor, customers will experience a beautiful and high-end retail environment. Next slide. Our proposed hours are from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sundays. In anticipation of potential initial crowds, we plan to serve customers by appointment only for the first month. Next slide. Now Jarrell will provide a more detail on the safety and security.
Jarrell, you might be muted.
Jarrell, you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I'm sorry. At Exhale, we intend to meet or exceed all CMR 500 110 security requirements for operation of cannabis establishment in Massachusetts. We've reviewed our security plan with the chief security officer at Dana-Farber Institute, who is our security consultant. We will ensure all customers are 21 plus or older, having proper signage stating so on the premise. Once inside the establishment, security personnel will screen IDs and will only allow customers into the retail floor after proper verification. The retail floor will be designed to ensure a one-way flow, so there's no customer overlap. Our exits will lead to the rear of the building, exiting through the parking lot. We'll have on-site security to monitor the premise. Security cameras will be backed up to the cloud. We'll have both primary and secondary alarms that are connected to local public safety. Next slide, please. On the inside, while having a clean, modern design, we'll have proper signage indicating secure and restricted areas from the public. Our display cases will be locked with products, while the inventory will be stored in secure vaults. 4K video monitoring the premises at all times, inside and out. For access to the secure area, we'll look to install smart locks. We'll also install a backup generator to make sure that power is constantly running to the establishment. In addition to video surveillance, we'll also have duress alarms located strategically throughout the establishment. Next slide. On the outside, as Anthony mentioned, with the investment on the upgraded facade and the parking lot, that'll be well lit. Outside of the word dispensary in the title, there will be no other indication of what is being sold. There'll be no visible cannabis to the public. And we intend to have security personnel that would also help with crowd maintenance. And we intend to be in regular communication with the local law enforcement and the civic organizations as part of our ongoing outreach to be a good neighbor. Next will be Omar to talk about shared concerns. Next slide.
Okay.
5-minute warning.
Good afternoon, everybody. With ample parking up to 20 cars gives us a great way to keep traffic to a minimum. Also, located at the intersection gives us easy flow, especially since we worked with the Boston Transportation Department to have access to the new one-way street that will be coming out onto Morton Street. Also, a large parking entryway for easy car flow, which will be monitored during open business hours from our uniformed officer. We are also located within walking distance from the MBTA and the bus services. Next slide, please. Thanks to the CCC, we adopted the seed to sale tracking system, which would clearly help everybody keep track of where the product's location is. Seeking positive people, we plan to hire positive people and train them for whatever situations that may come up that they may need to deal with. They also will have the additional tool of the 24-hour surveillance system that will allow them to keep track of what's going on in and outside. Without a valid government ID, you will not be allowed on the premises. Our whole team are parents, so we are definitely understand the kid aspect. So we will not have any minor-friendly packaging, and they will not be even allowed to view our website. Next slide, please. Our community customer agreement is our understanding that we ask first-timers to sign. This helps us by not having people loitering in cars, littering, smoking outside, and basically gives us and our neighbors common courtesy. Like I said earlier, we will get the training for our staff on as many scenarios as possible. With the assistance of our SOPs we will have in place, they should have everything moving smoothly. Once again, we will not put up with any type of public consumption or anything that makes us or our neighbors feel uncomfortable. And if there is something that makes someone feels uncomfortable, we plan to have a clean rapport with our neighbors so they can reach out to myself or any one of my business partners. Now Sharon will take you on to the final step.
Hi. Next slide. Business success to Exhale means being diverse and inclusive. As a 100% Black owned and operated company, success is giving opportunity to those who might not otherwise be included in this type of venture. And that's why we are committed to hiring a diverse group of contractors and suppliers. It's our hope that we have about 60% of suppliers be minority owned businesses. Next slide. Next slide. We will strive to pull from a diverse pool of applicants so that our employees reflect the demographics of the Mattapan neighborhood, particularly people of color, women, and those with past drug convictions, and those with parents who had past drug convictions. We anticipate having a 15-member employee workforce. We will offer a competitive employment package that includes a $16 an hour rate, health care benefits, 401k, and paid financial literacy training. As previously stated, we all grew up in Mattapan. My brothers and I literally grew up around the corner from the proposed business site. Actually, our parents still reside in the house that we grew up in on Violet Street. So we have a vested interest in making sure that the business uplifts and supports Mattapan. Next slide. We've been diligent in reaching out to our community for their support, speaking with local business owners, elected officials, abutters. We have over 200 petition signatures and letters of support. We really strive to be a good community partner, and we really want to be present. Next slide. Planning a $250,000 facelift inside and out so that the business is clean, modern, safe, and secure. We're also planning to implement a number of community outreach programs. And in addition to the 3% community impact fee, we'll be donating a percentage of our yearly profits to the community. And we'll look to the community on spending the funds so that they can be best utilized. Now, Anthony with transportation.
Thank you. And just to wrap things up, our last two slides are based around the transportation of the product and our transportation of CAS. So you have the details here, but because of our timing, I actually won't get into this too much detail, but if you have questions, we can answer that in the question sections. And that will bring us to the end of our presentation. Thank you. Does anyone have questions?
Thank you very much. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do, and it might be a better use of your time to supplement it in writing, but taking a look at your employment plan, there weren't a lot of methods shared about how you're going to reach your goals. You just state you're going to have this many, 50% of this and 50% of that, but we'd probably want more details about how you plan on going to achieve those goals. And I think the board memo was a little lacking in that area for me, but I think it requires a little bit more than like a 2-minute response. But you have until next week to supplement that for us. I'd just like some more information on that. And then same thing, a lot of the other things I was looking for in the application, it just seemed to restate what the minimum requirements are from the state. One in particular is how you plan on preventing people under 21 from accessing you just state we will prevent people from under 21 from accessing the premise, but that's something we need you to kind of elaborate. You can take a minute now, what do you plan on doing for that?
Okay.
Well, prior to anyone entering the building, you need to show ID. Like one of the previous individuals that was presenting earlier, we will have the electronic ID scanners, which, like you said, are on a national database. We know they're not 100% effective, but we definitely are going to ask some of our employees to just have a good observation on the individual that's in front of them and try to have some type of idea if there's some type of funny business going on. Yes, we cannot provide on technology. We will try to provide on, rely on some of our personnel's experience.
Okay, so just my final thought is if you could provide some additional supplementation on the hiring and recruitment plan and on your employment plan and how you plan to achieve those goals. I just don't think that's a conversation that we can kind of get to the crux of in a couple of minutes. And I think we would all benefit from some more details about that.
Sure, we'll be happy to address that.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I do, a couple. I heard you say, I heard you, first of all, that is like the worst corner on Morton Street with the double parking, all the pit stop, all the restaurants, the light, everything there, and plus you're coming over the hill. So did I hear you say that they're turning Evans Street one way?
Yes, ma'am. They are turning Evans Street one way. We did work with the BTD to allow us access to be able to take the left or the right immediately directly into our parking lot.
So so I'm assuming it's going one way, the opposite now. They're just going to allow them to come to your lot?
Yes, it comes out onto Morton Street, but the easement will give them enough room to be able to swing the left into our parking lot if necessary.
How you gonna manage that on that corner?
Ma'am,
in addition,
I'm sure it's gonna be
just to jump in there also, but in addition, as we didn't get into too much of the detail in the presentation, but we will have outside detailed that will be assisting as far as the traffic flow and making sure that we're not causing any issues as far as the business.
I mean, as much double parking as is out there, I don't know if anybody will be able to tell us your business or all the others, but as you all know, because you're from there, that's probably the biggest concern on that block right there is all the double parking utilizing the establishments and the stores. I mean, it's good business, but it does cause a bit of a traffic tie up there. So
And
just something to consider.
I'm sorry to jump in there, but a good thing is when we were working as far as with the neighborhood and as far as with the transportation department, we realized that there actually is going to be a whole overhaul to that area to assist as far as like the issues right now that are going on as far as the double parking. So when they make Evans into a one-way coming onto Morton, they're also going to be installing like those little white cones that are permanent on certain streets, on certain corners that sort of prevent cars from doing the double parking out front. So that's already going to be occurring. So then in addition with us and with our added detailed officers that are going to be out there, that should definitely help as far as the flow of traffic and then the prevention of the double parking that's going on for the other businesses.
And also, you know, the prevention of the diversion of your product, somebody coming in who is, you know, old enough, 21 and above to purchase, and then coming out and diverting the product to somebody else, you know. So that's something too that you probably want to make sure you keep a security person on the outside to just keep an eye of, you know, because as much as we like to think that everybody's honest, there will be, you know, somebody's going to try that move.
Well, a good thing just to add to that issue is that as Jarrell mentioned, it's going to be one-way traffic. So you'll come in from Morton Street, but you'll exit out into the parking lot and we'll have someone there. So when you're coming out, you should be getting into your car if you've parked and then heading on out. If you're walking, again, the detailed officers will be out there to hopefully, you know, deal with that aspect.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, just a couple, thanks. Omar, you mentioned that you were gonna have people who are underage somehow stop them from getting on your website. How are you gonna do that?
I mean, well, like the other commissioner just said, we have to kind of work with the honor system. I mean, it's as simple as asking somebody, are you over 21? I mean, we're not going to be in the room with them, so we can't make them click the right line, but we ask them the honor system. Are they going to look? Yes. Are they going to want to purchase? Maybe. But the reality is we're going to try to put whatever obstacles we can in front of them to deter that.
Yeah, because that's an easy hack.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do once they log on and they start their fudgery. Like I said, we're just going to try to make sure that we follow all the rules and regulations, and then maybe a couple more rules that we put in place just to make sure everything is on the up and up.
Yeah, just asking because you said somehow it'd be prevented. Second thing is on the 3% voluntary impact, community impact fee. Is that one time or every month, every year, every sharing?
Commissioner, the community impact fee is part of the host community agreement. So for the first 5 years of any establishment, in addition to the local option tax, there is a 3% community impact fee that goes to the city that we then have to allocate to. The language says that it has to be impacts reasonably related to the establishment. So in this instance, it couldn't be just cannabis as the whole, right? It would have to be what's happening in this specific neighborhood.
Thanks. And you're providing the business assets, you said, towards things that will have a positive impact.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, what would that look like?
And so you're talking
economically reparative practices.
Okay, Jarrell.
Sure. So what we intend to do is to work with local nonprofits or civic organizations that are recognized through the city of Boston and have them submit RFPs for some of the projects that they're working on. And we can issue a grant from, the proceeds of our business to those, organizations or groups. And that'll be that percentage of our revenue every year.
Is that a certain targeted percent or?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
we're looking up.
I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Up to 3%.
Yeah.
Up to 3%. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner St. Gian, do you have any questions for the applicant?
All the questions I had were asked. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now turn to public testimony, beginning with elected officials or representatives of elected officials.
Madam Chair, board, Cannabis board members, Dante Peoples here from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. There was a community meeting held on March 24th, 2021 via WebEx events, which was attended by residents, community stakeholders, and representatives of local elected office officials. The applicant has received a number of letters of support and received a plethora of names with support petitions that has been added to the record. While we understand that there is both support and opposition on the record regarding this proposal, the mayor's office would like to go on record in support and ask the applicant to continue to outreach the community as they move through the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials who wish to testify? Seeing none, we will turn to public testimony. Again, please limit your testimony to 2 minutes. It appears that no one has signed up to testify. Is there anyone who wishes to testify regarding this matter? Please state your name and address for the record.
I do.
Hi, please state your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Sheree Jefferson. I live at 635 Morton Street in Mattapan. I would like to express my support for this business. I support Black-owned businesses, especially in Black communities. And they're trying to do a lot for this community, as they said, with their community outreach. They're giving back to the community. They're reaching out to see what the community wants. They're giving back to the community and giving them what they want. They have a hiring initiative to hire people from the community, people of color, people who are diverse. Also, they have an initiative to make sure that they're getting their product from diverse vendors as well. So I really would like to submit my support for this business. I think they're doing great things.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify regarding this application? I see Noel has their hand raised. Please unmute yourself and state your full name and address for the record.
Kathy Noel. I reside at 30 Countryside Lane, and I would like to express my support for the applicant. I have known the Perkins family for a significant period of time. I've grown up myself most of my life in Mattapan. I respect what they're trying to do to bring a business into the neighborhood that will give back to the neighborhood and also provide educational and employment opportunities. Not only education as for business training, but also cannabis education, its uses and its methods. So I offer my support wholeheartedly for this venture.
Thank you very much. I see that Edwin Maynard has raised his hand. Please unmute yourself and state your address for the record.
Hi, I live at 48 Wells Avenue in Dorchester. I'm from Mattapan in Dorchester area. I think I'm a supporter of the business. I think it's a great idea. I think that it would bring other businesses in the area. As someone mentioned, that particular spot isn't the best, and I'm excited to hear that they're trying to turn the area around. And I think a business like this would really help promote the change that the area needs. So I'm in full support. Also, I don't think there are enough dispensaries in this city yet. I know you guys are working on it, but I was excited to see that, in Mattapan specifically, that there's a group of individuals who are trying to make this happen. So
thank you very much. I see that Rodney Scott, please state your address for the record.
Hi, I'm Rodney Scott, 48 Violet Street. Known the Perkins family for quite a few years. I'm also a Boston realtor, and I had many discussions, many different communities over the years about dispensaries and pros and cons. But as of right now, we're starting to see a lot of pros, particularly what a dispensary could do for individuals, but also what they give back to the community. So I am in favor of it, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other individuals who have not previously testified who wish to testify regarding this application? Again, the record will remain open until Tuesday at 5 p.m. We'll ask the applicant to also supplement the employment and other information that the chairwoman asked for additional written information on. Please provide that before Tuesday at 5 p.m. to allow for the commissioners to review. The board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you all. Thank you to the chairwoman and all the commissioners and everyone who attended today.
Thank you.